Chapter 86. Gu Fengzi sighed again. My father also said that it's all thanks to you and big cousin for taking care of us all these years. He has no way of repaying you, but he will definitely bless you to live a long life and bless the Shi family's business to flourish. He also said that Feng must be filial to you and serve big cousin well to repay the Gu family's kindness. As Gu Fengzi spoke, she covered her face and sobbed. She got up and knelt in front of Wang before kowtowing deeply. Aya, quickly get up, quickly get up. Wang hurriedly ordered the servants to help her up and said gently, You child. You've always been sensible, and I've seen how well you've treated Aunt and Fengju all these years. You've already been very good and filial. Be good, don't be like this. Aren't you purposely making Aunt's heart ache? Your father too, there's no need for him to say such things again. The corner of Wang's mouth rose slightly, and her face revealed a hint of joy. She thought to herself that Gu Jin was much more sensible after his death, and still knew how to repay kindness. If he really blesses the Shi family for better and better, then he's doing us right. Gu Fengzi choked with sobs as she thanked her and got up. She wiped her tears and said, My father also said that he already knows of my filial piety towards him, and that I don't have to be too formal. He said that since I've already entered the Shi family, I'm already part of the Shi family, and there's no need for me to mourn for him for another 3 years. He also said that by being filial to Aunt and serving big cousin well, that's already the greatest filial piety towards him. As Gu Fengzi spoke, she took out a piece of yellow paper from her sleeve and presented it to Wang with both hands. This morning, I sought an audience with the abbot, and told him about my dream last night. I asked him to interpret my dream, and teach me what to do. Aunt, please take a look. This is the abbot's analysis. Oh, then let me take a look, Wang said and quickly unfolded the paper. After receiving it, Wang then remembered that she did not know many words, but this paper was indeed used by the abbot of Guangling Temple. It was written so neatly and beautifully, just like the signature written by the master abbot in the past. Why don't you read it to Auntie? Wang handed it back to Gu Fengzi. Gu Fengzi took the book and read a total of 5 to 6 sentences. Then she explained it to Wang. It was nothing more than knowing one's mistakes and changing for the better. It was exactly what Gu Jin had done in the past, and what he regretted today. And the most important thing was, as Gu Fengzi had said, the mourning period could be reduced. Observing filial piety for my late father is an important matter. Although my father said so, as his daughter, I don't know how long I should observe for to suit his wishes. Thus, I asked the great master to make the decision. The master had calculated with his fingers, and said that half a year was enough. At that time, we'll go to the temple to perform a ritual, and worship the longevity tablet in the temple. Then we'll be done with the mourning period. After listening, Wang nodded and said, Since the abbot master said so, it must be true. Then let's do as the abbot master said. Gu Fengzi was secretly happy and quickly nodded. Feng also had the same idea. This way, I can fulfill my filial piety to my father, and also fulfill my filial piety to Auntie. It's the best of both worlds. Wang nodded with a satisfied smile, and sighed about her father. Just as they were talking, a loud female voice came from the door. Aya, isn't this Cousin Fengzi? Cousin Fengzi is back. It was sure you may. She went forward and pulled Gu Fengzi's arm to examine her before exclaiming in surprise. Why are you dressed so plainly? I haven't seen Cousin Fengzi for more than a year. Why does your complexion look so bad? You look so haggard. Did someone bully you? Isn't my second brother's heart aching to death? Cousin Fengzi. Gu Fengzi's eyes blurred for a moment before she could clearly see who the woman was. She was wearing a begonia red embroidered robe with lotus flowers wrapped around it, and a dark red floral dress with 16 patterns. Gu Fengzi could not help but be overjoyed. She then pulled Gu Fengzi's arm affectionately and said, Cousin Fengzi, you're back. This is great. As she spoke, her eyes reddened and she said softly, Fengzi is now in her mourning period. No one bullied Fengzi. Everyone in this family is good to Fengzi. The two cousins were especially happy to see each other. Sure Yumei pulled her to sit down and snorted. Of course the people in our Shi family are good to you, but it's hard to say about the outsiders. Some people are used to doing things. On the surface, they appear virtuous, but behind the scenes, they'll cause trouble. I've seen many such things. Of course not. Cousin Fangzi, you're thinking too much. There's no such person in our Shi family. Gu Fangzi quickly smiled. Wang also smiled and said, that's right. You're not as clear as your cousin Fangzi. Is our family that kind of person? Shi Yumei pursed her lips and did not say anything else. She turned to Gu Fangzi and congratulated her, saying that they were now officially part of the Shi family. She sighed. Why did uncle have to pass away at this time? The road to happiness is strewn with setbacks. It must have been hard on you. Those words struck a chord in Gu Fangzi's heart. Thinking of the grievance she felt when she entered the room and Shi Fengju's attitude, her eyes could not help but turn red and she silently shed a few tears. Father is not blessed, and Fangzi is not blessed. Don't say anymore. Don't say anymore. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have made you sad again. Shi Yumei quickly comforted her. Gu Fangzi smiled through her tears and nodded. And I won't say any more. Fortunately, Aunt Fangzi's fortune is great, and the Shi family is also a family of good fortune, allowing Fangzi to be protected here. Kiki, you're still so smart and witty. How can you complain that everyone likes you? Shi Yumei laughed and reached out to pinch her cheeks. When Wang heard her say not blessed, she subconsciously thought of Mama Li's words and felt a little gloomy. But when she heard those words, she became happy again. Seeing how close her cousins were, she smiled and said, all right, Fangzi, you can go back. You two sisters can go back and talk. You're making me annoyed here. I'll get someone to call for you two when dinner is ready. It just so happens that I have a lot to say to cousin Fangzi. Then I won't disturb mother any longer. Shi Yumei got up with a smile. That's right. Gu Fangzi smiled and said goodbye to Wang before leaving with Shi Yumei. Just as they left the main courtyard, Shi Yumei couldn't wait to talk about Sangwan and asked about Sangwan. Gu Fangzi rejoiced in her heart, but her expression was slightly restrained. Subconsciously, she swept her gaze around and smiled as she tried to change the topic. She asked when big cousin Fangzi arrived. Was the journey tiring? Wait. Shi Yumei was furious. Not at Gu Fangzi, but at Sangwan. Gu Fangzi was a straightforward person. Who would have thought that under Sangwan's suppression, she wouldn't even dare to say a word? From this, one could see how domineering Sangwan usually was. For someone from the Sang family to marry into her family, her ancestors must have burned incense for 8 generations. Not only did she not follow the rules and live an honest life, she even became domineering. Who does she think she is? Fangzi, it's not that I want to nag at you, but it's only been a year since we last met. Where did your courage go? To be frightened by someone from the Sang family. Shi Yumei sneered. Cousin Sangwan, what are you saying? Fangzi doesn't understand. Gu Fangzi smiled and her eyes twinkled. Seeing that Shi Yumei was about to open her mouth again, she hurriedly grabbed her wrist and pinched it. She looked at her with pleading eyes. Cousin Sangwan. Shi Yumei let out a long sigh. Forget it, let's talk about it when we return to Peony Park. Seeing her like this, it was obvious that she had too many misgivings. Now that she was a concubine and Sangwan was a wife, if Sangwan wanted to make things difficult for her, she wouldn't be able to do anything. Why should she create trouble for Sangwan just because of a momentary slip of the tongue? Good. Gu Fangzi's expression relaxed and she quickly nodded with a smile. Once they returned to Peony Park, Shi Yumei didn't need to be polite and went straight to the point. Of course, Gu Fangzi took a step back and refused to say anything. Shi Yumei had always been an impatient and straightforward person. In just a few moments, she was agitated by Gu Fangzi to the point of jumping up and down. Under her persevering and unceremonious interrogation, Gu Fangzi finally revealed half of her grievances and stuttered awkwardly. The remaining half was left to Shi Yumei's imagination. The space for imagination was endless. The more Shi Yumei thought about it, the more she felt that Sangwan wasn't a good person. That troublemaker. How could second brother marry her? I knew she wasn't a good person. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to coax mother and second brother. Shi Yumei said hatefully. Mother is really muddle-headed. I should have annulled this marriage and not let her in. You're better than her in every aspect, and you can help second brother in business. You're the most suitable daughter-in-law for our Shi family. Gu Fengzi liked to hear those words, and she thought so too. She couldn't help but feel warm in her heart. She held Shi Yumei's hand tightly and choked. Cousin Yumei, with those words of yours, Fengzi is worth everything. It's Fengzi who doesn't have such good fortune, so I can't blame anyone else. Shi Yumei snorted. Nonsense. If you don't have such good fortune, then that lass from the Sang family is even more unworthy. I'd like to see how long she can be smug for. Other than seducing men, what else can that vixen do? What part of her is worthy of our Fengju? Gu Fengzi was delighted to hear that and quickly persuaded. Cousin Yumei, you mustn't say that. Now, she's the one in charge of this household. So what? Shi Yumei became angrier. As the eldest daughter of the Shi family, why should I be afraid of her? I'd like to see what she can do to me. Cousin Yumei, you're the eldest daughter of the Shi family, and also Aunt Wang's favorite. She definitely won't dare to do anything to you. You just have to enjoy your life, so why do you have to be so meddlesome? I'm just feeling unjust for you. And also for our Shi family. Mother is still alive and healthy, yet she dares to humiliate you like this. What will happen in the future? Shi Yumei glared at her and frowned. I say you're too honest. When did you change to have such a temper? It's really infuriating. Aren't you going to tell Fengju that she's bullying you like this? Gu Fengzi's sore spot was poked and her heart ached. Why didn't I tell him? It's a pity that cousin Yumei is so bewitched by her that he won't stand up for me. Yet another set of excuses came out of his mouth. How can that be? Gu Fengzi sighed and quickly said, Big cousin Yumei is always so busy outside. He should have a good rest when he's home. How can I trouble him with such trivial matters? Besides, cousin Yumei, you're really thinking too much. It's just a small matter. Look, sister Yumei hasn't mistreated me. Chapter 87. You. What am I supposed to say? Sure, Yumei was exasperated at her sister's failure to live up to her expectations. She couldn't help but carefully examine the furnishings in the room. It was like a snow cave without any decorations. Compared to the splendor of the past, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. Sure, Yumei automatically ignored the fact that Gu Fengzi was in mourning. She snorted. Look at how she decorated your room. And you're still speaking up for her. Even the servants in charge of the household are more particular than this place. She then asked, where are the original things? Why were you so obedient and put them all away? You should have picked out a few and displayed them. Only then would they look more presentable. Gu Fengzi took the opportunity to exaggerate and distort the truth. She recounted how everything had been taken away by Sangwan. She then said guiltily, originally, I had purposely kept a gold-inlaid white jade child-giving guanyin distraction, a gold-inlaid green jade beaded hairpin, a string of high-quality Phoebe beads, and a few other things for cousin Sangwan, but I asked sister to put them all away. Now that cousin Sangwan has returned, I didn't even prepare a greeting gift. That girl from the Sang family is too much. Sure, Yumei was so angry that she almost jumped up. She slammed the table. I'm going to find her right now. Cousin Sangwan, you can't. I'm begging you, you can't. Gu Fengzi hurriedly pulled her back. She was so anxious that tears were about to come out. Sure, Yumei had originally wanted to go, but when she saw Gu Fengzi crying and shaking her head, she finally reacted. She couldn't help but sigh. You're right. If I go find her now, she won't dare to do anything to me. But she'll definitely come back to torment you. I can't be so impulsive. I can't implicate you. That's exactly what she said. Gu Fengzi said in her heart. Thank you for your understanding, cousin Sangwan. Gu Fengzi wiped her tears and took 2 steps back. She bowed deeply to Shi Yumei and said gently, I'm really fine, really. All right, I have an idea. Shi Yumei pondered for a moment and sneered. Don't worry. Even if I do something, I won't let her think of you. Gu Fengzi hurriedly said, It's not easy for aunt and eldest cousin. If we let them worry. My mother is muddle-headed. It seemed that second brother had also been bewitched by her. I can't be bothered to say anything in front of them. When Shi Yumei thought about how Wang and Shi Fengju had protected Sangwan, She couldn't help but feel annoyed. She said angrily, "My mother and second brother will naturally understand once I tear off that woman's fake face." Eldest cousin sister, you're the most thoughtful. Gu Fengzi immediately praised her. The two of them sat down again and drank tea. Hearing that Shi Yumei and Ren Jixian were going to stay with the Shi family, Gu Fengzi was overjoyed. Her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled from the bottom of her heart. Great. That's really great. She held Shi Yumei's hand tightly and smiled happily. Eldest cousin sister, now we can talk together more often. Just like in the past. Yes. Shi Yumei saw that Gu Fengzi was happy and welcomed her from the bottom of her heart, and she couldn't help but feel happy as well. Thinking of the happy times they spent together in the past, her heart warmed even more. Since eldest cousin sister is here, I still have a companion to relieve my boredom. How nice. Gu Fengzi smiled again and sighed. Speaking of which, I'm afraid that eldest cousin sister won't be staying at home for long. When cousin-in-law's husband becomes an official, eldest cousin sister, you can just wait to enjoy life. When that time comes, don't forget about me. Remember to come back often. Everyone loved to hear good words, especially those that touched the bottom of their hearts. When Shi Yumei heard this, she was elated and beamed with joy. It was as if her husband's success in the examinations was just around the corner. She was so happy that she repeatedly said yes. Gu Fengzi saw that she had managed to coax Shi Yumei into a good mood, so she continued to flatter Shi Yumei, which made her even more dissatisfied with Sang Wan. Soon, it was almost dinner time. Xiao Chun came over with a smile and invited eldest Missy back for dinner. It's actually time. Shi Yumei looked out at the sky in surprise. She pulled Gu Fengzi and said with a smile, "Let's go, we can go together." Eldest cousin sister, you should go. Gu Fengzi refused and smiled apologetically. I'm still in my morning period, so I can't go. I'll just eat a little in Peony Park. Shi Yumei heard this and couldn't help but sympathize with her. She gently patted her hand and said softly, "Then I won't force you. Don't think about those sad things. Eat more, your health is more important." And I know. Eldest cousin sister, you're just like my sister. You still care about me so much. Gu Fengzi nodded gratefully. We're just like sisters. Shi Yumei smiled and went back with Xiao Chun. On the way, she called Ren Jixian and the two of them went together with their concubine, Cui Zhu. From time to time, the food was served and the three of them sat down. Shi Yumei's eyes turned and she couldn't help but frown. Why don't I see Wan Yang? Why are you looking for her? Wang smiled in surprise. Shi Yumei snorted and said, Is there anyone like her who's a daughter-in-law? It's fine if she doesn't serve her mother-in-law when she's eating, but she doesn't even show her shadow. She's really the head of the household. How arrogant. Hey, let's eat. When Wang heard this, she waved her hand and said with a smile, I told her that she didn't need to serve. Nanny Jiang, Xiao Chun and Xiao Li are enough. Why did she have to come? Shi Yumei said unhappily, Mother, your temper is too good. You've spoiled her until she doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You're magnanimous if you don't mind, but how can the rules be wrong? Isn't the Sang family known as a scholarly family? How can they teach a girl who doesn't even understand such a simple principle? When my mother-in-law was still alive, I was always there to serve her when she was eating. As a daughter-in-law, I should do my duty as a daughter-in-law. Ren Jixian also nodded and said, That's right, Yumei is right. This is filial piety. We can't disobey. She's such an intelligent person. How can she be so muddle-headed? She really was an embroidered pillow. Ren Jixian felt even more disappointed. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to find anyone who resonated with him in this family. Shi Yumei saw that her husband agreed with her, and was about to say yes. However, after hearing what her husband said, her face darkened. She looked at her husband and sneered. Intelligent? How many times have you seen her? How do you know she's intelligent? What should he say? Ren Jixian was momentarily at a loss for words. With a stern face he scolded. How can you talk like that? Really? Shi Yumei had just heard from Gu Fengzi that Sangwon had a stomach full of grievances. Ren Jixian's words were like adding oil to the fire. Her anger rose rapidly. She sneered and raised her voice. Say it. How do you know she's intelligent? You're unreasonable. Ren Jixian had never been a polite person. He immediately flicked his sleeves and said with a straight face, "Look at you. How can you shout like this? Don't you have any manners at all? You're no different from a shrew in the marketplace." What? You dare to call me a shrew? Shi Yumei was so angry that her face turned red. She rushed over and grabbed his clothes, crying and making a fuss. You dare to call me a shrew? I serve you every day until I'm exhausted, but I can't even compare to her back. I can't live like this anymore. Let go of my hand. Who allowed you to be so unruly? How dare you hit your own husband? Ren Jixian flew into a rage out of humiliation, and tried to pry her hand away. What is this? Wang Shi did not notice that Shi Yumei had said something about a back view. She was so angry that her voice trembled as she pointed at the two people. She glared hatefully at the servants who were waiting at the side. What are you still standing there for? Quickly pull them away. Pull her away. The maidservants looked at each other as if they had just woken up from a dream. They shouted, "Eldest Missy, eldest young master," and rushed forward to pull Shi Yumei away with great difficulty. Mother! Shi Yumei was ashamed. She wiped her tears and cried. When Wang Shi saw this, she was both angry and distressed. But before she could say anything, Ren Jixian spoke first. He flicked his sleeves and said coldly, "Mother-in-law, did you see that? How unruly and unreasonable was this woman? Is this how the Shi family teaches their daughters?" Wang's breath was stuck in her chest. With a pale face, she said with a trembling voice, Are you questioning me? Your Ren family has such great etiquette. As a son-in-law, you dare to question your mother-in-law." Ren Jixian was stunned and immediately said, "This son-in-law doesn't dare. This son-in-law has no intention of questioning mother-in-law. Mother-in-law, please discipline this shrew properly. Otherwise, the Shi family will lose face." "Don't worry. My daughter doesn't need you to care about her," Wang said angrily and hatefully. "My daughter was such a good person when she was at home. I want to ask you, what is going on? How did she become like this in just a few years?" The more Wang thought about it, the sadder she became. She couldn't help but cry. Ren Jixian said resentfully, "That's right. I also want to ask, why is she so different from before? It's like she's a different person." Ren Jixian thought to himself, "Humph, don't look down on me. Seeing that I'm in dire straits, you dare to be so presumptuous. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? Just wait and see. When I'm successful in the future, don't you regret it?" Nanny Jiang couldn't stand it anymore. She hurriedly comforted Wang and begged Ren Jixian, "Mother-in-law, please don't say too much. After all, First Madam is your elder." A servant dared to teach him a lesson? Ren Jixian was infuriated. He flicked his sleeves, snorted coldly, and turned to leave. He actually. Wang gasped for breath and almost couldn't catch her breath. Shi Yumei was so shocked that she couldn't care about herself. She hurriedly called out "Mother," and rushed over to soothe Wang's chest. It took a while for her to catch her breath. The mother and daughter looked at each other and cried. "It's all my fault. Why can't I change my bad temper?" Shi Yumei forced a smile and said, "It's all my fault for making Mother so sad. Look, the dishes are already cold. Nanny Jiang, ask someone to heat them up." Wang sighed and looked at her daughter. She wanted to say something but stopped. He didn't notice it before, but now that he took a closer look, he realized that his daughter was much thinner than before. Her eyes were no longer as bright as before, and had become a little dull. Her lips were pale and colorless, and there were actually fine wrinkles under the corners of her eyes and on her forehead. Looking carefully, her daughter's spirit was not as good as hers. Chapter 88. One could not help but feel pity for Shi Yumei. She hugged her daughter and sighed softly. "My good daughter, I've wronged you. When your second brother comes back, he'll make the decision for you." One could not help but feel hatred in her heart. "Shameless. My family helped you pay off your debt, and provided you with good food and drinks. Yet you dare to talk to me about etiquette? What the hell? Even if my family has a lot of money, I'm not willing to spend it like this. I might as well feed it to the dogs." No, don't. Sure you may panicked and said, Mother, can you not tell second brother about what happened today? Don't tell him. You, Mother. Sure you may smiled as if nothing had happened. I'm also at fault for what happened today. He's a man, yet he's staying with his wife at her parents' house. I think he's feeling a little uncomfortable and sensitive. I shouldn't be so angry. We should talk things out. It's all my fault. I even made you worry about me. Sure you may choked with sobs. Wang was also feeling bad. Seeing her daughter like this, it was inconvenient for her to be angry. She sighed and said, It's not that I want to say this. Forget it, I'll listen to you no matter what you say. This is really. Sure you may heaved a sigh of relief when her mother agreed. However, she felt even more sorry for her mother. After some thought, she said, Mother, I think we should quickly tidy up Banana Courtyard after the Mid-Autumn Festival and move in. That way, we won't cause trouble for you all the time. One could not bear to part with her daughter. She opened her mouth and was about to persuade her to stay when she suddenly thought of her unreliable son-in-law. Out of sight, out of mind. She nodded and said, That's good too. Once you've settled down in Banana Courtyard, you can live a good life. Didn't my son-in-law say that he's going to participate in the provincial examination 3 years later? Just listen to your second brother and focus on studying in the courtyard. He doesn't have to worry about anything else. And thank you, Mother. Mother and second brother are still the best to me. Sure you may smiled gratefully. The dishes were served again, and the mother and daughter sat down to eat. Sure you may felt sorry for her husband, so she picked up a few dishes and asked Chuizhu to bring them to Renjishian. Seeing this, Wang didn't say a word and just let her do it herself. The next day was the annual Mid-Autumn Festival. The Sure family got up early in the morning to prepare for the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet. In Ning Garden, the maidservants, daughters-in-law, and older female servants were shuttling back and forth. Some were taking care of matters, some were taking the right tiles, some were taking things, and some were asking eldest young mistress to make decisions. It was very lively. Sangwan, Xingji, and the others were extremely busy. Mama Li took Luya to the main kitchen to direct the preparation of tonight's dishes. This was a big deal, and there couldn't be any mistakes. Sangwan could only rest assured if Mama Li was there to see it in person. Sure Yume casually strolled around the Fu and unknowingly wandered to the vicinity of Ning Garden. Seeing the endless stream of people coming and going in and out of Ning Garden, and thinking about how desolate Peony Park was, the anger in her heart surged. She sneered and went to Ning Garden with Chuizhu. When Sangwan heard the servant girl report that the eldest miss had come, she hurriedly ordered Xingji to take care of it. She and the servant girls hurriedly went out to greet the eldest miss. Eldest sister, why are you here? As soon as Sangwan came out of the room, Sure Yume had already passed through the courtyard and came to greet her. Sure Yume heard this and snorted. She glanced at her and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, Sister-in-law is now the mistress of the Fu. No matter what, I have to come and curry favor with her. What's wrong? Is sister-in-law not welcome? Where did these words come from? How could that be? I couldn't ask for more. Sangwan smiled and said, It's my fault. Logically speaking, I should have invited eldest sister over. It's just that I've been busy these past 2 days. As the head of the household, you have to take care of everything. How can you not be busy? I know that. Besides, I'm just a married young miss of the Sure family. What am I? It doesn't matter if you don't invite me over. Sure Yume smiled faintly and interrupted her words. Eldest sister's words make Wan Yang feel apologetic. It's Wan Yang's negligence. Eldest sister, please don't blame me. Oh, eldest sister, please have a seat in the warm room. Sangwan smiled and invited Sure Yume into the warm room. The two of them sat down. Sure Yume saw that Sangwan still responded to her sarcastic remarks with a lukewarm smile. She did not say that Sangwan was magnanimous and had good self-restraint. Instead, she sneered in her heart. She is indeed a shrewd person. No wonder my cousin didn't dare to say anything even after suffering a loss in front of her. The two of them exchanged a few pleasantries before the maidservants poured tea. Sangwan saw that Sure Yume did not accept the tea, and was startled at first. After that, She had no choice but to personally serve the tea to her and said with a smile, "Eldest sister, please have some tea." Sure Yume then smiled and took the tea. When she opened the lid, an elegant and faint tea fragrance wafted out. Looking at the elegant tea bowl, the tea was clear and transparent. It had a beautiful light yellow-green color, and was very pleasing to the eye. Sure Yume took a sip and praised with a smile. "It's really good tea. What is this called? I've never drunk it before." Sangwon smiled and said, "It's plum tea from Anhui. I also think it's good. If eldest sister likes it, I'll ask someone to send some over to eldest sister later." Sure Yume nodded and said with a smile, "Forget it, don't ask someone to send it to me. If I get used to it, it won't be good if I can't eat it in the future. It's better not to have it in the first place." Then she said with a smile that was not a smile, "Anyway, it's the same if younger sister-in-law has it here. When I get hungry and want to drink a few mouthfuls, I'll come over and disturb you. Younger sister-in-law, you won't find me annoying, right?" Sangwon could not help but feel depressed. She thought to herself, "How did I offend her? Why does she always speak with such thorns? Listen to what eldest sister is saying. How could I dislike eldest sister? I can't wait for eldest sister to come over when you're free." Sangwon could only smile and say, "If eldest sister really likes this tea, I'll tell eldest young master later. Eldest young master has always respected eldest sister. I think that no matter when eldest sister wants, no matter how much you want, he will definitely do it." Sure Yume was waiting for Sangwon to take care of everything and say that in the future, Sangwon would take care of the tea and let her come over to take as much as she wanted. If Sangwon really said that, she could take the opportunity to mock her and say things like, "Rich and overbearing," as expected of the head of a household. However, she did not expect that Sangwon would use Sure Fengju to speak, which made Sure Yume unable to do anything. She was indeed a scheming person. Sure Yume sneered inwardly. "Is that so? If you really don't dislike me, then I'll take it seriously. You can't regret coming over often in the future." Sure Yume smiled and sighed with a half-real half-fake smile. "Speaking of which, I really need to curry favor with you in the future. In the end, I'm a married lady. How can I not curry favor with the head of the household when I return to stay with them? I still understand this principle. Don't you think so, sister-in-law?" "Eldest sister, you're exaggerating." Sangwon's expression changed slightly. She looked at Sure Yume and said seriously, "The head of this household is mother. Wan Yang is just helping mother to take care of some complicated matters. I can't accept eldest sister's praise." "Why can't I accept it? A county magistrate is not as good as being in charge. Besides, all of this will be yours in the future. It doesn't matter if it's earlier or later." Sure Yume said with a cold smile, "My mother has a good temper. She always thinks well of others and doesn't guard against them. She just takes a few words of praise from others as sincerity. Sister-in-law, I think it's more reliable for you to be in charge of this household, lest outsiders take advantage of our Sure family. Don't you think so?" Sangwon clenched her handkerchief tightly. Her body was trembling slightly from anger. She suddenly realized and smiled. "You're indeed eldest sister. Your knowledge is extraordinary. Wan Yang is stupid, like a frog at the bottom of a well. She has never heard of such a great principle." Sure Yume was choked by her blunt words. Although she was angry in her heart, she clapped her hands and smiled. "You're indeed my sister-in-law. What a smart person. You understand with just a little bit. As your eldest sister, I've taught you such a great principle. Sister-in-law, aren't you going to thank me?" "What kind of great principle is this?" Sangwon didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She nodded and smiled. "Eldest sister is right. I should thank eldest sister properly. I knew that sister-in-law is generous." Sure Yume smiled and said, "Eldest sister is not a greedy person. You can just give eldest sister any of your jewelry. How about it?" "How about it? What else could she do? Could she refuse?" Sangwon couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. She thought to herself, eldest sister is the eldest daughter of the Sure family. She was pampered by her mother-in-law since she was young. Eldest young master is also very respectful towards her. How could she be so short-sighted as to say such words that are equivalent to robbery? But if she wants it, then so be it. These jewelry are not mine anyway. Sangwon didn't know that Shi Yumei was deliberately fighting for justice for Gu Fengzi. She was sure that Sangwon was scheming against Gu Fengzi's things and wanted her to bleed. As long as eldest sister doesn't mind, eldest sister can choose for herself. Sangwon smiled. Sister-in-law is indeed generous. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Shi Yumei clapped her hands and smiled. Sangwon wanted to ask someone to bring the jewelry box over, but Shi Yumei said that there was no need to trouble herself. So she went into the room with Sangwon and began to choose in front of the dressing table. She saw pearls, gems, and gold ornaments. Every piece of jewelry was exquisitely crafted and dazzling. Shi Yumei couldn't help but secretly exclaim. She was someone who knew the value of the jewelry. With just one look, she knew how valuable the jewelry was. She thought to herself, this woman is indeed scheming. I wonder what kind of magic she used to make Fengju so infatuated that he bought so many good things for me. She knew her younger brother's temper well. If he wasn't willing, no one would be able to get anything from him. And once he treated someone well, he would definitely do it wholeheartedly. Shi Yumei felt even more indignant on behalf of Gu Fengzi. She couldn't help but resent her younger brother a little. She picked up a necklace made of 18 thumb-sized pearls. The pearls were perfectly round and had a soft and round luster. It was heavy and luxurious. Shi Yumei clicked her tongue in praise. Putting it down, she picked up an emerald white jade hairpin and played with it in her hands. The entire hairpin had a shallow arc about half the length of a finger. The base was made of pure gold, and the golden threads intertwined to form the shape of a begonia. The top of the hairpin was inlaid with fine emerald white jade. The white jade was used as the petals, and the pearls were used as the core, surrounded by emerald green leaves and twigs. The pearls shone brightly and the jade ornaments were splendid. Holding it in her hand, it was heavy and exquisite. Chapter 89. Sister-in-law, you have so many good things. My eyes are dazzled. Every single one of them is good. Shi Yumei praised with a smile and said, why don't sister-in-law just pick one or two? Anything is fine. Of course, Sangwon wouldn't agree. She knew that no matter what she picked, Shi Yumei wouldn't like it. She might as well let her pick it herself. After all, it wasn't something that truly belonged to her. She wouldn't feel bad if someone else picked it. Shi Yumei saw that she insisted on picking, so she smiled and didn't hold back. She picked out the white jade hairpin that Sangwon had put in her hair bun when she first met Sangwon. Then, she picked out 2 18 jade bracelets, one studded with rubies, the other studded with pearls, a pair of jewel-studded hairpins, and a pair of gold-studded lantern earrings. Shi Yumei secretly observed Sangwon's expression as she picked. She didn't see any hint of reluctance on her face. Shi Yumei suddenly felt a little bored. Upon closer inspection, Sangwon's expression didn't seem to be fake. Shi Yumei felt a little apologetic. She thought that it was enough to teach her a lesson, so she stopped. Sister-in-law, you're so generous. As your elder sister, I feel embarrassed. I didn't bring any gifts for you, but you picked out your things first. I don't know what other people will say about me if they see me like this. Shi Yumei said with a smile that was half true and half false. How could that be? Sangwon smiled and said, you're the eldest daughter of the Shi family. You're the elder sister of the eldest young master, which means you're Wan Nyang's elder sister. Elder sister, you're treating me like an outsider. As Sangwon spoke, she asked Hong Yi to find a red sandalwood jewelry box inlaid with jade conch fragments and flowers. She put all the jewelry that Shi Yumei picked in the box and handed it to Cui Zhu. Shi Yumei was very happy to hear this. Not only was the jewelry box made of good materials, it had a beautiful appearance, and the inside was padded with red velvet cushions. It was perfectly divided into small compartments, and each compartment could hold one item. It was very considerate. It was obvious that it was also a valuable item. Sangwon took the initiative to give it to her, so she didn't know what she was thinking. However, the resentment in her heart, for no reason, had reduced a lot. Oh, Sangwon smiled. Eldest young master already told me that he'll be able to clean banana courtyard in a few days for elder sister and brother-in-law to live. When it's cleaned, I invite elder sister to come with me to see what you want. I don't know elder sister's preferences, so it's better for elder sister to see it personally. When Yume heard the words brother-in-law, she couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. She smiled and said, sure. However, I'm a bit picky. I'm afraid that younger sister-in-law will find me troublesome and complain. Elder sister, what are you saying? I definitely won't. Sangwon smiled. That's good. Yume smiled. Younger sister-in-law, you're busy here, so I won't disturb you. I'll go back first. Elder sister, take care. Come visit again when you have time. Sangwon secretly sighed in relief and personally sent her out. At night, during the Mid-Autumn Festival, the two branches ate together at Wang's courtyard. Everyone in the residence was present, except for Gu Fangzi. In Peony Park, Gu Fangzi was eating a vegetarian meal alone. She looked out the window at the bright moon that looked like a jade plate. It hung high in the blue sky, sprinkling light on the ground, and the mottled branches could be seen. Looking up at the moon and then down at herself, Gu Fangzi's eyes couldn't help but turn red. The surroundings were quiet, with only the occasional wind blowing and the soft rustling of leaves. In this silence, she seemed to be able to hear the joy of the Shi family, the sound of toasts and laughter. Compared to the cold and cheerless atmosphere between her and her servant, she felt even more miserable. It's fine if it's someone else, but eldest cousin didn't even come to see me. He didn't even greet me. Gu Fangzi couldn't help but feel resentful. She didn't know that Shi Fengju had rushed home from Mengxian not long before dinner. Sangwon, it must be that slut Sangwon's doing. Imagining Sangwon dressed up luxuriously and happily accompanying Shi Fengju at this moment, Gu Fangzi couldn't help but feel resentful. During the meal in the main courtyard, Ren Jixian was a lot more well-behaved. The two of them didn't cause any problems, and the others didn't either. The meal was a joyous and harmonious one. Not long after the meal, the family went to Furongting, which was near the water. They specially invited an opera troupe to perform in the open air. They enjoyed the moon and laughed while listening to the opera. It was quite lively. Yume hadn't listened to an opera so peacefully for a long time, so she didn't have time to bother Sangwon. Wang only cared about chatting with her sisters-in-law and daughter, so she didn't bother Sangwon. Second old mistress Shi's daughter-in-law had been refusing to come back ever since she returned to her parents' home. She felt embarrassed and didn't have the nerve to talk about her sister-in-law's daughter-in-law. Sangwon finally heaved a sigh of relief after a few days. She sat at a secluded corner and almost fell asleep, feeling someone gently draping clothes over her. Sangwon gently opened her eyes. Seeing that it was Luya, she smiled and said, "You're so considerate. The weather isn't cold, so you don't have to do this. Why aren't you watching the opera? Go, I have a servant here. I don't need you to wait on me." All the housekeepers, nannies, and servants loved to watch the opera. Xingji, Luya, and the others had just been chased away by Sangwon. At this moment, the masters were sitting in the middle, while the housekeepers and nannies were sitting at the side. There was also a large circle of people around them who were stretching their necks to watch the show. It just so happened that Wang Shi liked to be crowded and lively. She ordered the servants to set up several long tables at the side. On top of the tables, there were many melon seeds, candies, and other things for the maidservants to eat and watch the show. She felt that the more people there were, the more lively it would be. Upon hearing that, Luya bent over and laughed softly. This servant was just watching the show from the side. Who knew that young master would suddenly ask someone to call this servant over? He said that young mistress was tired and would catch a cold if she were to sleep outside at night. He asked this servant to bring some clothes for young mistress. Young mistress, young master really dotes on you. Sangwon was stunned and subconsciously looked toward Shi Fengju's direction. She saw that he was looking at her, and smiled at her when he saw her looking over. Sangwon's face reddened and she glared at Luya. "You talk too much. You've already gotten the clothes, so quickly go. If you're any later, we won't be able to continue the show." "Yes, young mistress. Then this servant will be going now." Luya pursed her lips and giggled before turning around to leave. Sang-won subconsciously stroked the red embroidered silk cloak on her body. The smooth and delicate fabric felt very good to the touch. It was soft and heavy in her hand, and it carried the cool night breeze. She gently lowered her head and her heart was filled with mixed feelings. She didn't know when the sleepiness and tiredness had already disappeared. Late at night, the kitchen sent supper over. Each person was given a bowl of steaming hot and fragrant chicken soup noodles. It was accompanied by tender cabbage, dried scallops, ham, fresh bamboo shoots, and mushrooms. It was very delicious. After everyone ate, they chatted and laughed as they dispersed. Sang-won had to carefully instruct the housekeepers and nannies to do their jobs well. Those that needed to be cleaned, cleaned, and those that needed to be cleaned, cleaned the wine utensils and put away the tables, chairs, flower vases, incense burners, and other things. Don't forget to return them to the warehouse tomorrow. Young mistress, this servant knows. Young mistress, don't worry. This servant will make sure to tidy up properly and won't let young mistress worry. It's already late, so you should quickly go back and rest. You see, young master is still waiting for you. Sang-won wanted to continue instructing, but one of the housekeepers glanced behind Sang-won and said with a smile. Everyone knew that this young mistress was serious and had a good temper. She spoke softly and softly. As long as they followed the rules, she would never throw a tantrum and humiliate others. She would also not vent her anger on the servants, so they dared to joke with her. Hearing this, they couldn't help but laugh and agree. Young mistress, quickly go back. Don't let young master wait too long. That's right. Young master has already looked over here several times. When we return, he will blame us for being useless and not knowing how to do things. Sang-won was a little embarrassed by their words and couldn't help but laugh as she scolded. Don't be so talkative. Tidy up carefully. I won't be satisfied if there's one less item tomorrow. As she said this, she turned around and left, surrounded by her servants. As expected, Shifengju was standing at the small path waiting for her. He was wearing a moon-white floral robe with a brocade belt around his waist. His figure was tall and slender, and he was casually looking forward with his hands behind his back. When the wind blew, the corners of his robe fluttered slightly. At first glance, he looked like a banished immortal. When he saw Sang-won and her entourage coming over, Shifengju smiled at her and indicated for her to come forward. Sang-won was a little embarrassed, but also felt a little sweet for no reason. She lowered her head and gently walked forward. Let's go back. Shifengju raised his hand to wrap it around her shoulder, but he thought about it and put it down. And Sang-won nodded. The two of them walked back together like this. They seemed to be very close to each other, but in fact the corners of their robes never touched each other. Sang-won's footsteps were also slightly behind Shifengju's by half a step. Shifengju could even hear her shallow breathing. However, there was always a gap between them, as if there was something lying between them, preventing the two of them from moving forward. The two of them were silent all the way until they returned to Ning Garden. After washing up and returning to their room, Shifengju suddenly called out to Sang-won. The mutton fat white jade hairpin I gave you, you gave it to eldest sister? Sang-won was startled. She suddenly remembered that the hairpin was inserted into Yume's hair tonight. She nodded and smiled. Yes, you saw it. Shifengju suddenly felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. At first glance, he felt that the hairpin was very suitable for her, so he specially bought it for her as a gift. He didn't expect that she would give it away so casually in the blink of an eye. Although the person who gave it to her was his own sister, Shifengju still felt uncomfortable in his heart. Why did you suddenly think of giving something to eldest sister? Shifengju said, logically speaking, you should give each other gifts when you meet for the first time. However, that hairpin was worn by you before. How could you give it to eldest sister? If you want to give her something, just tell me. I'll have someone buy it again. Chapter 90. Sang-won was inwardly angry, and her expression became somewhat unsightly. She thought to herself, are you despising the things I've worn because they're not clean? They're not worthy of your noble big sister. Shifengju looked at Sang-won's expression and pondered over his words. He knew that he had made a mistake, so he hurriedly said with a smile, That one young, don't think too much. I didn't mean to despise you. It's just that. I just thought that hairpin looks pretty good on you. Why did you have to choose that one to give to big sister? Don't you have a lot of other jewelry? Sangwon's expression softened, but her tone hardened. She said indifferently, "What's the difference? Aren't they all the same?" In his heart he thought, your big sister chose it herself. How can I say no? I'm afraid that if I don't give it to you, you'll find trouble with me later. Shi Fengju was momentarily at a loss for words. He was depressed and couldn't say anything. Seeing that Sangwon was about to turn around and go to bed, Shi Fengju's heart warmed. He couldn't help but blurt out, "Of course it's not the same. I bought that hairpin especially for you. I don't want you to give it to someone else." Sangwon suddenly froze. Her body stiffened, and she couldn't move. What did he say? He said that he especially gave it to her? She didn't hear wrongly, right? Shi Fengju took a deep breath. "Wan Yang, you didn't hear wrongly. I especially gave it to you. I think that hairpin suits you very well. I didn't expect that you would give it to someone else." Sangwon's lips moved and she said softly, Big sister came over today. The gift was chosen by big sister herself." "What?" Shi Fengju's eyes lit up. His terrible mood lightened up a little. Sangwon felt a little embarrassed and said vaguely, "Nothing. It's getting late. You should rest early." Shi Fengju laughed and said, "You mean that big sister chose that hairpin herself, and you didn't take the initiative to give it to her?" Sangwon said, "I already gave it to her. What's the point of pursuing this?" He could only nod and say yes. The corners of Shi Fengju's mouth curled up, as if he was addicted to asking questions. He hurriedly asked, "Then do you like that hairpin?" "I like it." Sangwon nodded gently. "I know." Shi Fengju smiled and said, "If big sister wants to take it away, then so be it. You don't have to be reluctant. I'll find you a better one later. Sleep early." "All right," Sangwon said. When did I say that I was reluctant? But when he said that, she still felt happy for no reason. At the very least, she wasn't completely insignificant in his heart, was she? Early the next morning, Lan Xiang hurriedly rushed to the main courtyard to look for Shi Yumei. With an anxious expression she said, "Eldest Missy, our young mistress has fallen ill." This servant didn't dare to make a sound. Thinking that eldest Missy was here, this servant gathered her courage and came to beg eldest Missy, "What should we do?" When Shi Yumei heard this, she became anxious and scolded, "Silly girl. Your young mistress is sick. Why haven't you called a doctor yet?" But young mistress said that it's not a big deal. She didn't want eldest mistress to worry over such a small matter. Lan Xiang stammered. When Shi Yumei saw this, she frowned. As she walked with Lan Xiang to Peony Park, she said angrily, "Let's go. I'll go with you to take a look. Why is this person so scared? She's so careful." She didn't even dare to ask Sangwon to call a doctor when she was sick. It could be seen how much Sangwon had bullied her on a daily basis. Shi Yumei couldn't help but grit her teeth. That woman really knows how to act to win people's hearts. I'm also a short-sighted person. Yesterday, when I saw a few pieces of jewelry, I couldn't help but have a good impression of her. I was almost fooled by that one-faced, two-faced thing. Gu Fengzi's face was flushed red. She was wearing soft ivory silk undergarments and lying on the bed, coughing non-stop. Her hair was tied up in a bun and held up loosely with a silver hairpin. Her eyes were slightly red and her face was haggard. She looked very pitiful and cute. "How did you become like this? Wasn't everything fine yesterday?" Shi Yumei was shocked. She sat on the edge of the bed and cried out, "Cousin Yumei." Gu Fengzi had just called out to her when her eyes reddened and tears welled up in them. Don't cry, don't cry." Shi Yumei gently pulled her into her arms and gently patted her back. She said softly, "My good sister, don't be sad. Do you feel very uncomfortable? I'll go ask that vicious woman. You're already like this and no one has come to greet you." "Don't." Gu Fengzi hurriedly pulled Shi Yumei back. She held back her tears and said, "It's not sister's fault. It's all Fengzi's fault. I shouldn't have sat in the courtyard for so long last night. That's why I caught a cold. I don't know why, but I unknowingly sat there until late at night. This morning, I felt a headache and couldn't get up. I've troubled eldest cousin again. It's all my fault. Sure Yume couldn't help but blame herself. She sighed and said, I should have thought of you last night and come over to accompany you. Gu Fengzi hurriedly smiled and said, Eldest cousin, what are you saying? It's not easy for you to come back to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival. You should be accompanying Aunt Wang to fulfill your filial piety. Even if you came, Fengzi wouldn't let you. Sure Yume thought about it, and felt even more annoyed with Sangwan. Let's not talk about whether we came or not. That lass from the Sang family didn't even come to see you. Is this how she, as the legal wife, takes care of the people around Fengjiu? That Sang family really knows how to teach their daughters. Sister was busy with the arrangements for the festival, and was actually quite tired and busy. Eldest cousin, please don't blame her. In the end, it's all Fengzi's fault. She shouldn't have coveted the moonlight. Sure Yume couldn't help but sigh in pity. She said firmly, Don't worry. You can't do this in the future. I'll take care of everything. That's true. Why didn't Fengjiu come over yesterday? Gu Fengzi's words poked at Sure Yume's sore spot. Her expression turned gloomy and she forced a smile. Big cousin, he must be busy. Fengzi knows that he must be worried about Fengzi. As long as he has the heart, it's enough. Sure Yume suddenly remembered that Sure Fengjiu had only just entered the house yesterday evening. It was all because of her husband. She felt a little guilty and coughed to stop the topic. She nodded at Gu Fengzi and smiled. That's true. You and my second brother grew up together, and he has always been good to you. No one can compare to him. It's good that you understand his intentions. She then glared at Lan Xiang. Silly lass, why are you still standing here? Why aren't you calling for a doctor? Can't you see that your missy is in pain? Lan Xiang quickly glanced at Gu Fengzi before hurriedly turning around and running off. Sure Yume was busy comforting Gu Fengzi. Gu Fengzi could only cheer herself up and smile gratefully. However, she couldn't help but feel disappointed in her heart. She wanted to beat around the bush and hint to Sure Yume to remind her big cousin to come visit her often. Who knew that before she could say anything, Sure Yume stopped. Lan Xiang ran to Ning Garden 1 to inform Sangwan. Sangwan instructed someone to call for a doctor, while she personally went to Peony Park to take a look. Younger sister is sick? Is it serious? Sangwan went in and asked with concern. Oh, why did older sister come personally? Gu Fengzi struggled to get up. Her face was full of awe and surprise. Younger sister, lie down and don't move. Sangwan saw her putting on an act and sneered in her heart. However, she could only go along with the act. Taking a few steps forward, she held her down and blamed herself. It's all my fault for not taking care of you and causing you to fall sick. So you know that too. Sure Yume snorted coldly. Since you're Fengjiu's wife, you should be magnanimous and virtuous. Fengzi is a legitimate concubine, yet you take care of her like this? Not to mention, she's my mother's niece. If you treat her like this, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear the consequences if my mother blames you. It's my negligence. Sangwan lowered her head slightly. Seeing Lan Xiang at the side, she couldn't help but reprimand. All of you too, how did you serve her? The wind is cold at night, so how could you let your missy be exposed to the wind in the courtyard? Your missy is still in her mourning period and her feelings aren't good. How could she withstand the wind? Even if you couldn't persuade her, you should have taken the initiative to add more clothes for her. You've been with your missy for so many years, and I've only thought of you as someone who's considerate. I didn't expect you to be so careless. Younger sister, why don't you pick another 2 maidservants to serve by your side? Lan Xiang secretly complained, and had already knelt down to admit her mistake. Gu Fengzi and Sure Yume couldn't refute Sangwan's words. Thank you for your concern, older sister. Gu Fengzi coughed and said gratefully, older sister is already tired from being busy all day, so there's no need for older sister to worry about me. Yesterday, I was willful, and it has nothing to do with Lan Xiang. She's very good, and I can use her well. For the time being, there's no need to add more servants. Add more servants? Gu Fengzi sneered in her heart. Sure enough, the fox's tail has been exposed. She wants to plant a spy in my courtyard. Don't even think about it. Younger sister too, Sangwon inadvertently glanced at Yume and thought to herself, "You heard it. She was willful, but it has nothing to do with me. I can't possibly keep an eye on her all day long." She smiled and said, "You're already an adult. How can you be so willful? Moreover, other things were fine, but this body was his. If you're sick, you're the one suffering, and others will feel sorry for you. Don't do this again in the future." As she said this, she called Lan Xiang and smiled. "Good girl, I've wronged you. You're so loyal, and you didn't even try to defend yourself. You've been wronged." "This servant doesn't dare." Lan Xiang lowered her head and quietly stood to the side. Yume saw that Gu Fangzi had already said so, but she couldn't do anything. She snorted lightly and didn't say anything else. Not long after, the doctor came. After diagnosis, he said that it was just a cold, and it was fine. He prescribed 2 doses of medicine, and told the servants to decoct it and take it. She shouldn't be exposed to the wind, and she would recover in 1 or 2 days. Sangwon ordered the servants to send the doctor out, and then instructed Lan Xiang. "Although the doctor said it's fine, this medicine is in your young miss's mouth, so you should be more careful. You can go down and get the medicine yourself. Later, don't be lazy, and personally decoct the medicine for your young miss to take. If you don't pay attention and something happens, even if your young miss forgives you, I won't forgive you. Go." Lan Xiang subconsciously glanced at Gu Fangzi. She saw that she was half lying and half leaning on the bed with a sickly face, and didn't even look at her. Lan Xiang softly responded and went to get the medicine. Gu Fangzi secretly cursed. Originally, she was thinking of tampering with the medicine, but Sangwon made it so clear in front of Yume that Lan Xiang had to take full responsibility. It was clear that she was guarding against her, and also warning her. Chapter 91. Sister is still the most meticulous. Gu Fangzi expressed her gratitude on the surface, but secretly mocked. "You've thought of everything. That's what I should do. Sister, rest well. If there's anything, just send someone to inform me." Sangwon smiled. Yume snorted coldly. "What's the use of sending someone to inform you? You might as well tell my second brother. Oh right, when he comes back, don't forget to tell him that Fangzi is sick. He should come over to take a look." Sangwon could not help but feel unhappy. "Big sister, don't worry. Young master will know. I want you to tell him." Yume thought to herself. Sure enough, she couldn't hide her true colors anymore. She was full of jealousy. "That's your duty as a wife." "All right." Sangwon nodded. "Sister, you should go back. I'm fine here. How can I trouble sister and delay sister's work?" Seeing that Yume had finally hit the nail on the head, Gu Fangzi couldn't help but rejoice, and her eyes lit up. "Yes, sister-in-law, go and do your work. I'll accompany Fangzi," Yume said casually. "Oh right, how's Banana Courtyard? I'll have to trouble sister-in-law." Sangwon didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was only the 15th day of the 8th lunar month yesterday, and only half of the day had passed. "Sister, you're already so anxious. I've already instructed them to clean it up tomorrow. After that, I'll invite sister over to take a look." "Is that so? Sister-in-law, you're really capable. Sister will thank sister-in-law first." Yume was slightly startled. She didn't expect Sangwon to have already given the instructions. "Sister, you're too polite." Sangwon smiled and got up to leave. "Cousin Yume, are you moving? Congratulations." Gu Fangzi quickly smiled and sighed regretfully. "What a pity. If it was in the past, I could still give cousin Yume a few things as decorations, but now..." Yume sneered. "You don't have to feel guilty. What you don't have, she has plenty. Let's see if she's willing to part with her." Gu Fangzi couldn't wait for Yume to empty Ning Garden. She smiled and said, "Of course. Eldest cousin has always doted on eldest cousin the most. If you want anything, just go and take it. Big cousin will give it to you." "Oh, that's not good. Fungju doesn't care about what happens at home." Yume smiled. "So what? Big cousin is the true head of the household," Gu Fangzi said. The two looked at each other and smiled. During dinner that day, Sangwon mentioned Gu Fengzi to Shi Fengju. Younger sister caught a cold yesterday and had a doctor take a look at her this morning. Big sister accompanied her for a while, and even asked why you didn't go over to take a look. Shi Fengju frowned subconsciously and asked without raising his head. What did the doctor say? He's seen her and said that there's no harm in saying. He prescribed some medicine, and I'll ask Lan Xiang to take care of her carefully. Shi Fengju didn't say anything else and only replied with an "oh." After a while, Sangwon smiled again. Oh right, I've already instructed the servants to clean Banana Courtyard. Since big sister and brother-in-law will be living there for a long time, they must be satisfied. Today, I've already told big sister that I'll be inviting her over. She can decide how to decorate the place and how to add things. She can just instruct the housekeeper to do so. Later on, I thought that brother-in-law might have some objections if I only asked big sister. Why don't you come with us the day after tomorrow and call brother-in-law along as well? We might as well ask both of them. That way, the two of them can discuss it. Shi Fengju raised his head and smiled. You're so considerate. All right, I won't go out the day after tomorrow. Sangwon secretly let out a sigh of relief. It's good that you're here. When the time comes, no matter what the two of them say, you'll be there to support them. I'll just be on the side and remember. Thinking about Shi Yumei's inexplicable hostility and intentional or unintentional difficulties, Sangwon felt a headache coming on. Then it's settled. Sangwon smiled and said, Big sister said that after they move into Banana Courtyard, I'll treat her to a meal. I don't know what she likes. When I asked her, she only smiled and said that she could prepare anything for me. But in the end, she's still the big sister. I have to take her preferences into consideration. I think you should know, right? Big sister is really too much. Shi Fengju smiled and shook his head. After thinking for a while, he said with a smile, This season is just right for crabs. How about this? When the time comes, I'll get someone to bring 2 baskets of fat crabs back. Why don't you treat mother and second aunt to a meal? As for wine, there's aged chrysanthemum wine in the restaurant. It's pure, fragrant, sweet, and not easily intoxicating. I'll have someone send it over. As for other dishes and desserts, just prepare a few to go with the crabs. Sangwon was overjoyed when she heard this and quickly smiled. Then it's settled. I'll let you know when I've decided on a date with big sister. Okay. Shi Fengju saw her smiling eyes and curved eyebrows. He felt happy for no reason and said softly, It's been hard on you these past few days. After big sister and the others settle down, I'll take you to the farmstead to relax for 2 days. Sangwon lowered her eyes and ate without saying a word. On this day, Sangwon and Shi Fengju invited Shi Yumei and her husband to Banana Courtyard. Shi Yumei saw Shi Fengju and frowned subconsciously. She glanced at Sangwon before saying to Shi Fengju angrily, Second brother, why do you have to accompany me for such a small matter? Go do what you have to do. You don't have to be so particular when you're at home. Shi Fengju repeated the reason that Sangwon had told him before, and Shi Yumei remained silent. Ren Jixian was excited when he heard this. He glared at his wife and nodded before saying calmly, Fengju is still the most considerate. Other places don't matter. Do you women understand what's going on in the study room? Shi Fengju rolled his eyes in annoyance. He raised his hand and said, Please, before entering the courtyard together. He pretended not to hear his father's words. With Shi Fengju around, Shi Yumei didn't have to do much. The living room, warm room, bedroom, bathroom, and side room were quickly arranged. Shi Yumei smiled faintly at Sangwon and said, When the time comes, I'll have to trouble sister-in-law. I'd like to ask sister-in-law for a few decorations. Sangwon quickly agreed with a smile. Shi Fengju also smiled and said, Big sister, when the time comes, I'll let Wanyang open the storeroom to accompany you to choose. Screens, murals, tea sets, curtains, antique decorations, you can choose whatever you want. If there's nothing to your liking, we'll go shopping again. I guarantee that big sister will be satisfied. Shi Yumei smiled and said, Then if I want a few pieces in your room, will you give them to me? Of course, why wouldn't I? Shi Fengju glanced at Sangwon, and could only answer in such a way. Shi Yumei had only asked casually, But when she saw Shi Fengju's glance, she felt uneasy. She thought that Sangwon was in charge of everything, but her own brother had to listen to her. She couldn't help but think that when the time comes, she would definitely choose a few pieces that Sangwon loved. When they arrived at the study room, trouble came. The study room was located in the east wing of the courtyard on the right side of the main room. There were 3.5 partitioned rooms in total, and it was very spacious and bright. Ren Jixian looked at it for a while with his hands behind his back. He claimed that the room was a little narrow and cramped, and that he had to get someone to open up all 3 rooms. Then he had to build a large bookshelf against one wall, change the leaky window to a crescent window, hang a bamboo curtain, and place a long couch or an arhut bed in front of the window. Outside the window, he had to transplant 2 plum blossoms and a few green bamboos. Next to the plum blossoms and bamboos would be piled up. After that, he began to talk nonstop. He talked about the size and height of the desk, the type and size of the painting vat, the 4 treasures of the study, the murals and other decorations, where to set up the long table, where to place the incense burner, and so on. In the end, he concluded, "Let's not talk about anything else. The furniture in this room should all come together and be made to fit the cracks in the floor. That way, it will look beautiful and elegant." Before Ren Jixian could finish, Shi Fengju's expression had already changed several times. Does this person even know how to spell the word shame? Who does he think he is? Chapter 92. Ren Jixian replied with a sullen face, "You Mei is right. I'm doing this for the good of the Shi family. Since you don't think it's necessary, then forget it. You can do whatever you want with the arrangement." Ren Jixian was indignant. He thought to himself, "You really don't know how to appreciate my kindness. I'm only willing to put in the effort today because I'm in a good mood, and you're lucky enough to hear it. What does your family know about decorating a study room? It's no wonder. You can't even produce a single scholar in a few lifetimes. How would you know about this? You only care about money." Shi Fengju was annoyed that he didn't know the severity of the matter, and refused to let him off. He pretended not to understand Shi Fengju's expression, and smiled lightly. His words were full of sincerity. "How can I do that? Big brother-in-law, you can't say that. This study room will be used by you in the future. If you don't care about it, I'll be in a difficult position. After all, no one in our household knows about this. If you don't have any opinions, then I'll have to ask someone to decorate it according to the way you did at home." Ren Jixian was so angry that he couldn't speak. Shi Fengju smiled again. "How about this? When I ask someone to decorate the room, big brother-in-law, you can watch from the side. If you think it's okay, then we'll do it. If you don't think it's okay, then we'll discuss it again. How about it?" "I think it's okay." Shi Yumei nodded with a smile. However, Ren Jixian had nowhere to vent his anger. He thought to himself, "Good? What's so good about it? Can I not think it's okay? If I don't think it's okay, you're going to use my family as an excuse." Ren Jixian couldn't help but feel annoyed at Shi Fengju for bullying him. He wanted to stand up straight and be firm, but when he thought about how he had nothing and even needed to rely on others to decorate his books, Ren Jixian couldn't be firm anymore. He could only nod his head carelessly. "Then let's do it this way." "Then it's settled." Shi Fengju smiled and said, "Big brother-in-law, if you have any suggestions, feel free to raise them. I guarantee that they will satisfy you and won't affect your mood to review your homework." Ren Jixian snorted silently. He walked out of the study and glanced at the bananas and bamboos in the courtyard. He pointed at them and said, "The bananas are too dense, and the bamboos are blocking the light in the study. Ask someone to cut them down tomorrow." "Okay." Shi Fengju laughed, not minding at all. "Chop it down. Chop it down tomorrow. Do you want me to plant 2 plum trees for brother-in-law?" Ren Jixian wanted to say no, but he nodded subconsciously. "Then I'll have to trouble you. Brother-in-law is too polite." Shi Fengju smiled and said, "Brother-in-law wants Lao Mei, right? I don't know if we have it in our residence. But don't worry, I'll be able to find a few in Qingzhou. I'll just buy them." He had a look that said, "I have plenty of money. I don't care how much it costs." Ren Jixian felt dizzy and almost stumbled. He felt jealous and indignant. He secretly cursed the heavens for being unfair. How could this kind of commoner have so much wealth and live a life of extravagance, while he, a disciple of the scholarly sage, had to suffer poverty? He even had to live under someone else's roof and depend on someone else's whims. Sangwon gasped in amazement and secretly thanked herself for her luck. Fortunately, she managed to pull Shifengju along today. Otherwise, how would she be able to hold her ground? She could not help but glance at Shifengju. With such a brother-in-law, no wonder he was so disgusted with her, who was also from a scholarly family. This is really... Second brother, you're not going out today, right? Shifengju suddenly called out to Shifengju after they left Banana Courtyard. Shifengju raised his eyebrows. Is something the matter, big sister? Shifengju smiled. If you're not going out, let's go to Peony Park together. Speaking of which, Ayu and cousin Fengzi haven't had a good chat for a long time. Sangwon was calm and collected. Her eyes drooped as if she did not hear anything. No, Shifengju smiled. I'm just about to go out. If big sister wants to go, you can go alone. Fengzi is in mourning, so big sister can go and take a look. Don't sit for too long. What's wrong with that? Shifengju smiled. Mourning is about the intention. It's quite pitiful for Fengzi to be alone in Peony Park all day. Why can't we go and accompany her? Otherwise, how will she survive this half a year? There's no one who cares about her. Shifengju unconsciously frowned. What is she trying to do now? No one cares about her? Does she lack enough to eat or wear? Does she need everyone to revolve around her all day so that she can live her life? Furthermore, half a year? Shifengju raised his head in confusion. Isn't she going to mourn for 3 years? You still don't know. Shifengju was also surprised. She then told him how Gu Fengzi went to Guangling Temple to perform the ritual, how she dreamed of Gu Jin, and how the abbot interpreted the dream. She could not help but blame Shifengju. You don't even know about this. You really don't care about her. Why didn't you go and see her last night? Shifengju glanced at Sangwon suspiciously. Shifengju followed her gaze and his face sank. It was too late last night, so I didn't go. Wanyang has already told me that she has seen a doctor. Let her rest well. I don't have the time to revolve around her all day. He then said that he had something to do and pulled Sangwon away. Mourning for half a year? Shifengju sneered in his heart. To be able to do such a thing in such a dignified manner. She was indeed the only one. She had always been a smart person. Shifengju could not help but sigh inwardly. Unfortunately, her intelligence was always used in the wrong place. Shifengju and Ren Jixian both wanted to move into Banana Garden as soon as possible. They actively monitored the progress of Banana Garden every day. After 7 days, everything was in place. They chose an auspicious day and moved in 2 days later. Shifengju indeed went to Ning Garden to look for Sangwon to pick out several vases, furnishings, calligraphy, and paintings. Sangwon had never seen these things as her own. She did not feel the slightest bit of heartache when giving them away. She did not even blink her eyes, let alone take them to heart. Shifengju felt apologetic when he saw this. He comforted her and said that if she needed anything, he would buy it for her later. Sangwon dismissed it with a smile and did not say anything. On the day that Shifengju moved in, Gu Fengzi was not present. However, she had Lan Xiang represent her to congratulate Shifengju and say a few auspicious words. This was not the main reason. The main reason was that Lan Xiang had finally stopped Shifengju. These days, Shifengju had not taken even half a step into Peony Park. Gu Fengzi was truly anxious. She had asked Shifengju indirectly, but all she heard was that he was busy. However, Gu Fengzi knew that these words could only fool Shifengju. They could not fool her. If he really had the heart, how could he not have the time to spare? Gu Fengzi saw that Shifengju had been dismissed by Shifengju with just a few words. She could not help her at all, so she could only use her only trick. She had Lan Xiang go invite him. However, even if Lan Xiang went to invite him, she was still just a servant. If Shifengju did not put her in his eyes, then she was nothing. She could not use a rope to tie Shifengju to Peony Park. However, today was different. She stopped Shifengju in front of Yume and said with a pitiful smile, "If young master has the time, please go and see Missy. Missy has always been thinking about young master." When Shifengju heard this, he felt even more disgusted. A woman who was in mourning did not show her filial piety, but kept thinking about another man. Even if that man was him, he did not feel happy. Instead, he felt a little disappointed. Yume also pushed him and said with a smile, "That's right. You should go and see Fangzi. Every time I say something, you have something to say to me. I can't win against you. Today, no matter what, you have to go and see her. Fangzi is really pitiful." As she spoke, she glanced at Sangwon. "You weren't like this in the past. Did someone say something to you behind your back?" Sangwon pretended that she did not hear anything, and instructed the maidservants to carefully carry the things into the house, so that they would not knock against each other. "Big sister." Shifengju frowned and said, "Do you think your brother is such an indecisive person? Who can say anything to me? Who can make a decision for me?" He thought to himself, "Right now, the ones who are desperately trying to help me make a decision are you and that good cousin of mine." That's true. My brother is not a muddle-headed person. Yume also laughed and said, "Big sister, Rijong is in a mess right now, so I won't keep you here. Quickly go. Go." Shifengju was helpless. If he did not go, who knows how long this sister of his would nag in his ears. Forget it, go. Thus he turned around and walked out with a straight face. Lan Xiang was overjoyed. She hurriedly bowed and thanked Yume before running after him. "Missy, Missy, young master is here to see you." As soon as they entered the courtyard, Lan Xiang shouted loudly. Gu Fangzi was overjoyed. She hurriedly tidied her clothes and hair before taking the initiative to welcome him. "Big cousin." Gu Fangzi looked at Shifengju affectionately. You finally came to see me. How is it? Have you been well recently?" Shifengju tried his best to make his voice sound calm. He endured his impatience and walked into the house. Thinking about it carefully, it had not been long since he last saw her. But at this moment, when she stood in front of him, Shifengju felt a sense of unfamiliarity. His heart did not have the slightest ripple. It was as if he was facing someone completely unrelated to him. Thinking that this person was actually the concubine that he had welcomed into the house, Shifengju suddenly felt a chill down his spine. "Fanger is fine. Thank you for your concern, big cousin." Gu Fangzi hurriedly invited him to take a seat and smiled softly. "These days, it's all thanks to cousin Yume coming to accompany Fanger. Thinking back to the days when the three of us were together, it really makes me happy. It's great that big cousin is living with our family from now on. In the future, the three of us can often be together. Although big sister is living at home, she is now the daughter-in-law of the Ren family. She has to serve her own husband. How can it be the same as before?" Shifengju was even more unhappy when she mentioned the past. Big cousin is right. Gu Fangzi's temper was exceptionally good today. Hearing this, not only did she not refute, she even smiled and admitted her mistake. "It's clear that I said something silly. Not only is big cousin different from before, but you and I are also different. We are finally together. After all these years, we have finally achieved a positive result. It's clear that big cousin's feelings for me have not changed. Fang is really happy." Lan Xiang immediately served the tea and tactfully retreated. Chapter 93. Gu Fangzi looked at the handsome man in front of her. This man who had liked her for so many years, the more she looked at him, the more she liked him. She couldn't help but feel amorous. Her slender hand handed over a teacup. "Big cousin, please have some tea." Shifengju looked at her and reached out to take the teacup. He didn't realize that the woman in front of him was full of tenderness and her eyes were full of charm. "Big cousin." Shifengju. Gu Fangzi refused to let go of the teacup. The back of her slender hand gently rubbed against Shifengju's hand. With a coquettish expression she said, "I missed you so much, did you?" "Ah." Before the words "miss me" could come out of her mouth, Shifengju had already retracted his hand as though it was burning hot. He lost control of his strength and pushed her hand. Caught off guard, Gu Fengzi spilled the tea in her hand and scalded her hand. Subconsciously, she loosened her grip and the teacup fell to the ground. Fengju. Gu Fengzi felt wronged and rubbed her hand that was slightly red from the scalding. Her eyes were filled with tears. Shi Fengju suddenly stood up and frowned. You should just call me big cousin. Tell Lan Xiang to get some ointment to apply. I still have something to do, so I'll be leaving first. No. Gu Fengzi finally managed to get him here, so how could she let him go? If it wasn't for the mourning period, it would have been inconvenient for her to look for him personally. She suddenly hugged Shi Fengju tightly from behind. Her entire face was tightly pressed against his back. She rubbed back and forth and sobbed softly. Big cousin, stay with me for a while longer. Don't go, okay? Big cousin, you like me, so how can you treat me like this? Did I do something wrong to make you unhappy? Big cousin, tell me, I'll change, okay? Fengzi, let go. Shi Fengju forcefully pried her hand away and took 2 steps back. Fengzi, don't forget what I told you. Don't forget your status. I've always remembered, I've never forgotten, Gu Fengzi said with tears in her eyes. I'm your woman, how could I forget? There was no way to communicate. Shi Fengju had no choice but to admit this fact. How did they end up like this? His big sister's deliberate hostility towards Sangwan, as well as her taking every opportunity to talk about Gu Fengzi in front of Sangwan, as well as the past between the three of them. Shi Fengju was not a fool. If no one had instigated it, his big sister would not have done so. Even if big sister did not like the marriage between the Sang and Shi families, big sister valued him more. As long as he liked it, big sister would definitely like it as well. But big sister just did not like Sangwan. Gu Fengzi saw that Shi Fengju did not say anything. His eyes were dark and deep, and she could not understand what he was thinking. She rushed into Shi Fengju's arms and hugged him tightly. She raised her head and kissed his cheeks and neck, murmuring, Big cousin, I'll give it to you. Let's be husband and wife. Let's be real husband and wife, let's. Gu Fengzi. Shi Fengju angrily pushed her away and raised his sleeve to wipe his face and neck in disgust. He said coldly, Are you crazy? I'm not crazy, I'm serious. Gu Fengzi cried. Big cousin, you said that the person you want to marry is me. It's me. And I can't have another man in my life other than you. Big cousin, we'll be together sooner or later, right? Gu Fengzi said as she took off her clothes. If you want to be crazy, you can be crazy by yourself. Shi Fengju's eyes were as cold as ice. A woman in mourning for her father is doing such a shameless thing. Don't you think about your father in heaven? I feel ashamed for you. Shi Fengju snorted coldly. He turned around and strode away. Gu Fengzi's face suddenly became as white as snow. She swayed and fell to the ground. She weakly held onto the edge of the chair and bit her lips. She closed her eyes and tears fell down like pearls. Gu Fengzi cried silently. Her thin shoulders trembled violently, like leaves falling in the autumn wind. Shameless, shameless. Those were his words to her. Gu Fengzi shook her head stiffly. She could not believe it. The man who used to hold her in his hands, the man who said that the only wife he wanted in his life was her, coldly pushed her away and cruelly scolded her. Shameless, shameless. Sangwan. Sangwan. Gu Fengzi gritted her teeth. Her face was ferocious, and there was a crazy flame in her eyes. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. I definitely won't let you have it easy. Young miss. Lan Xiang rushed in and saw her young miss crying on the ground. She was shocked and rushed over to help her. Young miss, what's wrong? Get lost. Gu Fengzi shouted and shook off Lan Xiang. She coldly wiped her tears and said word by word. I want to get up by myself. I can get up by myself. Eldest cousin, you'll regret it. You'll regret treating me like this today. Shi Fengju angrily left Peony Park and returned to Ning Garden like a gust of wind. Where's young mistress? He asked when he did not see Sangwan. His face was terrifyingly dark. His expression was cold and full of anger. His tone was also very aggressive. Everyone in Ning Garden was shocked. They did not know who had made young master so angry. Young mistress went to the storeroom. Hong Yi cautiously went forward and replied, Tell her to come back. Shi Fengju raised his eyebrows and said coldly, What are you waiting for? Go quickly. Yes, yes. Hong Yi was so scared that she almost jumped up. She did not wait for instructions and hurriedly ran off herself. After hearing Hong Ye's words, Sangwon did not dare to be negligent. She told Mama Li a few things and then hurried back. As she walked, she thought to herself, could it be that Gu Fengzi complained about me to him again? If he complained, then so be it. In any case, there was nothing she could say to others. She had done nothing wrong. Whatever he asked, she would answer truthfully. Shi Fengju sat alone in the warm room, hugging his knees and sulking. The young maidservants did not dare to go in to serve him. They all held their breaths and waited outside, looking outside from time to time. Seeing Sangwon return, everyone silently sighed in relief. Sangwon asked if he was inside. She took a deep breath and lifted the curtain to go in. Before she could open her mouth, she heard Shi Fengju coldly shout, "Get out! Where's young mistress? Is she not back yet?" It seemed that he was really angry. Sangwon's heart could not help but clench. She secretly admired him. She did not know how Gu Fengzi complained, but the effect was really good. "Young master, it's me," Sangwon replied softly. She calmly walked forward. "Young master, are you looking for me?" Shi Fengju was stunned. His dark expression softened a bit. He hurriedly got off the Kong bed and stood up. He smiled apologetically. "You're back. I'm sorry, I didn't know it was you." And Sangwon opened her eyes in surprise. She quickly shook her head and smiled. "It's nothing. Young master was anxious to find me too. It's nothing." Shi Fengju smiled. "I just wanted to," he originally wanted to say. "I just wanted to see you." But when the words reached his mouth, he felt that it would be a bit strange. He changed his words. "I just wanted to ask you, Anne. Have you decided on a day to treat eldest sister to crab? I'll have someone prepare it." Sangwon was completely speechless. Did he have to put on a dark face and scare all the servant girls to the point that they did not dare to breathe because of this? "There's really nothing else. I just wanted to ask about this." Shi Fengju forced a smile. He also felt that he was a bit strange. But after coming out of Peony Park, he just missed her. He really couldn't wait to see her. It was as if only by seeing her could he calm down the anger in his heart. These words were too outrageous. Sangwon was determined not to believe them. However, since he did not want to say, she would not be so tactless as to get to the bottom of it. If he did not want to say, that would be for the best. "Not yet." Sangwon smiled and said, "I'll let you know after I've asked mother and big sister tonight." "And that's fine." Shi Fengju saw that she really believed him and did not ask any more questions. He was secretly disappointed and did not know what to say. He only felt that his heart was stifled. It was really stifled. He had never felt so stifled in his life. "Eldest young master's complexion is not too good. What's wrong?" Sangwon finally did not disappoint him and asked. Shi Fengju's heart relaxed. He shook his head and smiled. "It's nothing. I just feel a bit uncomfortable. Can you accompany me for a walk?" Sangwon was startled. She thought about it and smiled. "It just so happens that eldest sister just sent someone to say that she wants a few bonsai plants to be placed in the courtyard. I don't really understand these things. How about you accompany me to pick some?" Shi Fengju laughed and joked. "You don't understand? You're a refined person. How could you not understand?" Sangwon chuckled and said, Don't say that about me. I'm the most vulgar person. The real refined person lives in Banana Courtyard." The two of them couldn't help but laugh. Sangwon regretted her words. Other than her brother-in-law, there was also her eldest sister who lived in Banana Courtyard. Her seniority was higher, so saying that was a bit too much. She stopped laughing and said, "Then are you going or not? If you're not going, then I'm going to get busy." "I'm going. Let's go." It was rare for her to take the initiative to invite him. Moreover, wasn't it the front of the flowers under the moon? How could he not go? The two of them had just left Ning Garden when they saw Mama Li rushing back. She reported to Sangwon that the things had been sent to Banana Courtyard. She also saw that the eldest young master's complexion was normal. After asking if there was anything wrong, She felt relieved and watched them leave with a smile. Sangwon and Shifengju went to Songfeng Garden, where bonsai were placed in the estate. They picked 5 bonsai plants and ordered someone to send them to Banana Courtyard. When Yume heard that it was her younger brother who picked them, she didn't say much. However, she couldn't help but mutter to herself. This lass from the Sang family is really capable. She's always pushing everything to her younger brother. But then she thought, doesn't this mean that her younger brother values her and has her in his heart? For a moment, she didn't know whether to be happy or resentful. The next morning, Yume went to Peony Park to see Sangwon again. When she saw her, she asked with a smile, "Did Fengju come to see you yesterday?" Gu Fengzi's body stiffened slightly, but she still smiled shyly. Her neck drooped as she softly acknowledged with a smile. "Big cousin came to accompany me for quite a while, but it's not convenient for me to keep him here, so I let him go back first." Yume laughed heartily and pinched her cheek intimately. She smiled and said, "See, I'm right? Fengju still has you in his heart. He's just busy." "Yes. How can I not understand?" Gu Fengzi nodded with a smile. Chapter 94. Yume sighed and said, "Isn't that so? You're his good wife. Our family's business will depend on the two of you in the future." Gu Fengzi's eyes lit up. That's right. What was Sangwon to her? Even if she was in charge, she could only wander about in the inner residence. What would a frog in a well like her know about how vast the world outside was? Would she be able to help Big Cousin in the business? Once her mourning period was over, she would be able to join hands with Big Cousin to manage the family's business. With a flip of her hand, she would be able to do whatever she wanted. That would be much better than being stuck in the inner residence. When that time comes, Big Cousin would naturally know who was the best for him to marry. As long as she had Big Cousin firmly in her hands, so what if she, Sangwon, was capable? How difficult would it be for her to become a concubine? If Cousin Yume says so, how could Fengzi dare to accept it? "Cousin Yume, you're making fun of Fengzi." Gu Fengzi's brows relaxed and she smiled modestly. "If you don't dare to accept it, who else would dare?" Yume smiled and sighed. "It's a pity that you met with such a situation when I just returned. Otherwise, we would be having so much fun now. Tomorrow we'll be eating crabs at Qiufeng Pavilion, but it's a pity that you won't be able to come." Yume's words struck a chord in Gu Fengzi's heart and she sighed. "Isn't that so? Heaven doesn't comply with one's wishes. Who knew it would turn out like this? Didn't I say it before? This is called the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks." Yume gently patted her hand and comforted her softly. "Half a year's time will pass very quickly. Everything will be fine when the time comes." Gu Fengzi smiled and nodded gratefully. She then smiled and said, "This season is indeed a good time to eat crabs. Big Cousin must have specially invited you, right?" "No," Yume said. "It's that lass from the Sang family." She then snorted and said, "She's so petty. It was only because I forced her to treat me that she agreed to treat me. At least she still had some conscience and was willing to treat him to crabs. Today, I saw the crabs that were sent from the farmstead. They were so big, each one was as big as the mouth of a bowl. I'm afraid they weighed less than half a catty." She then said that it was a pity that she could not go to Yunyun. On the other hand, Gu Fengzi's expression changed a few times before she asked with a smile, "Then she's really considerate." "That's right. How did eldest cousin know that it was sent by the manor? Our family's farmstead?" "Yes. I saw it with my own eyes and heard it with my own ears. How could it not be true? Oh, what a good scheme she has." Yume said angrily. "She's using something from the manor to do favors for her. I wonder how happy my mother was when I said that yesterday." She kept praising her filial piety. Gu Fengzi's heart sank. She forced a smile and said, "You can't say that. After all, she was the one who gave the order. Furthermore, these things from the farmstead have to be paid for. Otherwise, where would the money for the management of the farmstead come from?" Yume smiled and said, "You're the one who understands. You're even speaking up for her." Gu Fengzi laughed dryly and did not say anything. However, her heart became even colder. She knew very well that the Shi family had a total of 3 large farmsteads and 5 small farmsteads in the Qingzhou area. Of the 3 large farmsteads, 2 were fertile fields and 1 was a mountain forest. Each of the farmsteads occupied more than 10,000 mu and did not produce crabs. Even those 5 small farmsteads did not produce crabs. At least, there was no crab as big as Shi Yume described. Only Shi Fengjiu's private farmstead was rich in crabs. She remembered that she had gone there with him a few years ago. Needless to say, this treat was under the guise of Sangwan, but in reality, Shi Fengjiu was helping her. He actually helped her. He even thought of such a small matter. Did she not have money on hand? Did she not know how to prepare it herself? Gu Fengzi's heart was sour and bitter. Recalling how Shi Fengjiu treated her yesterday, the anger in her heart deepened. She was right, a man's heart was the most unreliable. Even if they were childhood sweethearts, even if they loved each other, it could not compare to the daily companionship. In the end, he had a change of heart. He was seduced by that vixen. Although Gu Fengzi was sad, she did not lose heart. Instead, her fighting spirit rose even more. She believed that since he could change once, he could change again. As long as she put in enough effort. Oh right, is Cousin Yume doing well in Banana Courtyard? How is the decorating going? Gu Fengzi smiled and said, that sister of mine is the most elegant and refined person. With her helping to decorate, I'm sure it'll be elegant and comfortable. Shi Yume sneered and said, don't mention her. How would I dare to ask her to do anything? Whenever I ask her something, she would make excuses and ask Fengjiu to do it. Even I feel sorry for Fengjiu. She really doesn't know how to feel sorry for her own husband. Shi Yume said and told her how she had troubled Shi Fengjiu before, and after the decorating of Banana Courtyard. She also complained that even the bonsai she had asked Sangwan to choose were chosen by her younger brother, Shi Fengjiu. When Gu Fengzi heard this, her heart burned with jealousy as if it was being pricked by needles. She rolled her eyes and explained to Shi Yume. At the same time, she also gave herself an acceptable reason. She smiled and said, Cousin Yume should be happy. This shows that big cousin respects you as his sister. He has to do everything himself and instruct you personally before he can be at ease. I think so too. Shi Yume gave her a knowing smile. Otherwise, she would have found another way to find fault with Sangwan. Cousin Yume only brought Chuizhu here. How many servants are there in Banana Courtyard? Are they convenient for Cousin Yume? Gu Fengzi asked casually. Shi Yume nodded and smiled. Mother gave me 2 maidservants, Xiao Shuang and Xiao He, as well as 2 servants. Fengjiu also sent a manservant to serve your cousin-in-law in the study room in front. There are also servants to clean the courtyard regularly, so that should be enough. Gu Fengzi sighed and said with a smile. It can be seen that Aunt Yume dotes on you the most. She thought of everything for you. I thought that Sister Yume would arrange servants for you. Shi Yume was disdainful and said unceremoniously, how can I use the servants she arranged? I'm not stupid. Why would I leave a pair of eyes in the courtyard? Cousin Yume, you're wrong. Sister Yume's servants are all very good. What's more, you are the Shi family's legitimate young mistress. Which servant would be so foolish as to be someone else's eyes? Gu Fengzi's words made Shi Yume very happy. Seeing her praising Sangwan, Shi Yume sighed and praised her for being broad-minded and virtuous. Unexpectedly, while Shi Yume looked down on the servants in Ning Garden, Ren Jixian had other ideas. When Shi Fengjiu sent a servant to serve him in the study room, Ren Jixian's dream of having a beautiful woman to accompany him was shattered. After suffering a few losses, he no longer dared to provoke Shi Fengjiu. Instead, he found ways to find fault with Shi Yume and complained all day long. Shi Yume could not help but be annoyed and said, save it. This is my maternal family, not ours. Touch your conscience and tell me, since the day we arrived, when has my maternal family treated us badly? What more do you want? Ren Jixian sneered. They didn't treat us badly. The food they gave us was given through the gaps between their fingers. It's charity. As he said that, he rolled his eyes at Shi Yume and said disdainfully, you won't understand even if I say it like that. Let me give you an example. Let's say we go to a poor family. They only have half a piece of bacon left, and they take it all out to serve us. Then we go to a rich family. The rich family has a lot of grain, but they are only willing to kill a chicken to serve us. Tell me, whose relationship is greater? Sure, Yume still did not understand and said, what rich and poor, bacon and chicken? I only know that my mother and brother are good enough to us. Why don't we go to your friends now? Who would take you in? A woman's view. Ren Jixin shook his head and snorted. He did not want to argue with her, but he said, don't make your mother and brother sound so noble. I'm a scholar. If it weren't for my future success, would they have taken us in? Wake up. If your brother really cared about us and was good to us, we wouldn't have fallen to such a state. Sure, Yume understood these words. She couldn't help but feel angry and anxious, but she couldn't find any words to refute. She could only hatefully say, here we go again. I'm a married girl. Don't tell me I have to rely on my younger brother to make a living instead of relying on my husband. Don't you know how our family's property was squandered? Do you want me to say it? Isn't it because you indulged in debauchery and squandered a lot of money outside? Even my dowry is gone, and I'm the only one left of my dowry. What else do you have to say? Sure, Yume couldn't help but cry when she talked about the sad part. Ren Jixin was embarrassed, but he angrily reprimanded. What does a woman know? How did I indulge in debauchery? That's just a social interaction between friends. Don't you know how to make friends through literature? How can I improve my knowledge otherwise? You won't understand even if I explain it to you. That's right, I don't understand. I'm not as good as you. Sure, Yume sneered. I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting for you to bring me back with a title of nobility. Only then will I submit to you. I'm afraid I won't have this fortune in this lifetime. Ren Jixin was so angry that his face turned pale. He pointed at her and said, you don't look down on people. No wonder the sage said, only women and villains are difficult to raise. The sage didn't lie to me. He then sneered. You only want me to earn you a title of noble lady? You don't even have someone to serve you. I have to worry about everything. What's the point of studying? I think you're right. It's fine if I don't study. Sure, Yume was shocked when she heard this. Isn't Ming serving you in the study? Don't tell me he dares to bully his master. Ren Jixin snorted. I can't control a servant. I'm too ashamed to say it. He's honest, clumsy, and useless. Sure, Yume was someone who understood him. She finally understood why he had been at loggerheads with her for the past 2 or 3 days. She glanced at him and sighed. Useless? If you're useless, you can't say it properly. How would we know if you don't say it? Ren Jixin snorted and thought, say it? Would it work if I said it? Tell you? Which family are you from? In the end, sure, Yume was still concerned about her husband's future. After all, the final decision of her life depended entirely on him. She couldn't really live in her maiden home for the rest of her life. She didn't have time to be angry and said hurriedly, I'll go find my second brother today and ask him to change you to a clever servant. Chapter 95. No need, no need. Ren Jixin said faintly. He thinks that a clever girl may not be suitable to serve in the study. Sure, Yume looked deeply at Ren Jixin and said, who do you think is suitable? Tell me. She wasn't too stupid. Ren Jixin thought to himself. A servant girl, I think she is clever. I'm just afraid that your second brother won't be willing to give her to me. Ren Jixin said faintly, but his tone didn't show any restraint. The anger in Sure Yume's heart immediately surged. Good, he didn't want a servant but a servant girl. She didn't need to think to understand what her husband was thinking. He must have taken a fancy to a servant girl, and wanted to take her as a concubine. Sure, Yume suddenly felt aggrieved and wanted to quarrel with him, but she gave up after thinking about it. There was no cat in the world that didn't eat fish, and there was no man that didn't lust after beauty. Although her husband was lecherous, he had never lost his sense of propriety. He hadn't been bewitched by vixens to favor his wife and neglect his concubines. Even in the past few years, he had at most a servant girl who slept with him. He didn't even have a concubine. It was obvious that he valued her, his legal wife, the most. It was good enough that her husband could do this. If he was like her sister-in-law, then she would be miserable. With that thought, The anger in Sure Yume's heart dissipated by half, and she said with a pleasant expression, "Just tell me which lass it is. It's just a servant girl. My second brother isn't such a petty person." "That's good. Then I'll wait for you to ask for her," Ren Jixian said. "It's the servant girl by your sister-in-law's side called Xingji." Sure Yume suddenly narrowed her eyes. "Xingji? Xingji." Sure Yume was a little unhappy when she heard that it was someone by Sangwon's side, but she suddenly remembered Gu Fangzi's words. Then she remembered that Xingji was a servant girl in the residence, so there shouldn't be any mistakes. She nodded and said with a smile, "You have good taste. That's my sister-in-law's servant girl. She has been serving in Ning Garden. Well, I'll ask my second brother when he comes back." Ren Jixian was overjoyed, and a smile finally appeared on his face. He thanked her profusely, and said that with such a clever person by his side, there was no need for him to worry about anything. He would definitely be able to get twice the results with half the effort when revising, and he would definitely not mistreat her when the time came. He coaxed Sure Yume until she was extremely happy and assured him that he would be at ease. She then sighed and said, "If I can really make you focus on revising, not to mention one servant, even if it's 10 servants, I'll get them for you. My virtuous wife." Ren Jixian smiled and cupped his hands in greeting. After a while he frowned and said, "You can understand me, but won't your second brother think that I'm asking too much and deliberately picking on the servant he sent over? If we make each other unhappy, then let's forget about it. After all, we're living under someone else's roof. If we can't, then let's just forget about it." Sure Yume also had the same idea, but she couldn't bear to hear others say such things. It was as if as long as she heard such words, it meant that she wasn't a member of this family anymore. She wasn't her mother's precious daughter, and she wasn't her brother's sister anymore. How can that be? Sure Yume snorted. "My brother is definitely not that kind of person. He treats me, his sister, very well. What I'm afraid of is that someone is playing tricks behind his back. Forget it, I won't wait for him to come back. I'll go talk to my good sister-in-law now. Don't worry, I have a plan." Sure Yume didn't wait any longer. She immediately got up and went to Ning Garden with her maidservants. Sangwon felt her scalp go numb when she saw her. She had seen clearly what kind of temperament this couple had these days. Ren Jixian couldn't find fault with her, but Sure Yume was different. This ancestor couldn't be flattered or beaten. She was even harder to serve than a mother-in-law. "Eldest sister, you're here. Please come in and have a seat." Sangwon smiled as she welcomed her into the warm room. At the same time, she ordered the maidservants to serve tea and snacks. To her surprise, Sure Yume didn't find fault with her today. She didn't say anything that was neither sour nor cold. She even showed a smile on her face. "Sister-in-law, you're too polite. I hope I didn't disturb you." No, don't say that," Sangwon said with a smile. After sitting down and exchanging a few pleasantries, Sure Yume smiled and chased her away. "I'm just idle and have nothing to do. I didn't expect to come to your place. You don't need to entertain me. Go do whatever you need to do. I'll leave after sitting here for a while. Go really. We're family, so you don't need to be so particular. Oh, just let this girl stay and chat with me," Sure Yume said as she pointed at Xingji. Sangwon was secretly puzzled. Previously, she had thought that Sure Yume was deliberately pretending to be polite. Of course, she didn't dare to take it seriously, so she just smiled and said perfunctorily, "Who knew that it didn't seem like it?" Sure Yume clearly felt that she was in the way, and insisted on chasing her out the door. Sangwon had no choice. Moreover, she really did have something to deal with. She got up and ordered Xingji to serve her eldest sister well. Then she smiled and left. Sure Yume held the teacup in her hands and looked at Jida from head to toe with a smile. Her figure was well proportioned, her shoulders were sharp, her face was oval-shaped, her nose was sharp, and her pair of watery eyes resembled 2 apricots. She had delicate features, and it was obvious that she was smart. Her cleverness revealed her honesty and steadiness. She didn't seem frivolous at all. No wonder Old Master had chosen her at first glance out of so many people. She was indeed an excellent one. The more Sure Yume looked at her, the more satisfied she was. The smile on her face couldn't help but deepen as she nodded slightly. Xingji stood there and twisted her fingers. She didn't dare to raise her head under Sure You May's stare. Her heart was beating like a drum. She didn't know what this eldest sister was planning. Is there something on this servant's body or face that is disturbing eldest sister's eyes? Xingji felt uncomfortable all over and couldn't help but ask with a smile. No. Sure You May finally realized that she was staring at her a little too much. She waved at her and smiled. Come sit down. Let's talk properly. There's no place for this servant to sit in front of eldest sister. Xingji felt even more uneasy. She smiled and said, If eldest sister has any instructions, please don't hesitate to tell me. This servant. Xingji's heart quivered and she cried out, oh no! In her heart. Could it be that eldest sister wanted to inquire about young mistress? She wanted her to be her eyes and watch over young mistress from now on? Xingji was shocked and her face couldn't help but change color. Sure You May saw this and felt both angry and amused. She reached out and pulled her to sit down. She smiled and said, You're too timid. If I ask you to sit, then just sit. There's no need to be so particular. You know that I'm the easiest person to get along with. Then this servant thanks eldest sister. Xingji had no choice but to force a smile and sit down. However, her heart was thumping nervously. Young mistress was a good person and taught her how to read. She was indebted to her. No matter what, she couldn't do anything to harm young mistress. At most, she would beg for her grace and quickly get married. Once she left this garden, everything would be fine, right? With the status of her parents and brothers in the Sure family, Xingji was confident of this. After preparing for the worst, Xingji's heart calmed down a little. That's good. Sure You May smiled with satisfaction and began to chat with Xingji. She asked about how old she was this year. What did she like to do? How was her embroidery? What kind of tasks did she do by young mistress's side? How many siblings did she have? What did she do? Wait a minute. Xingji was even more certain of Sure You May's thoughts and refused to go into detail. Out of the 3 sentences, 2 were empty words. It was nothing more than, Usually, I do whatever mistress tells me to do and I don't have any hobbies. When I'm not on duty, I'll go back to my room to rest or do the housework. I'm not good at needlework and don't do much exercise. However, Sure You May merely wanted to use this opportunity to improve the atmosphere of the conversation, and she did not care how she answered. Thus, she did not take her excuses to heart. With one casually asking and the other randomly answering, the conversation miraculously went on smoothly. Oh right, I heard that your young mistress taught you how to read? Is there such a thing? Sure You May suddenly asked with a smile. Xingji's body stiffened and she smiled. There is such a thing. But it's a pity that this servant is stupid and can't recognize many words. Compared to Luya and Hongyi, I'm far behind. Even young mistress said that it's hard to teach this servant. Your young mistress is a talented woman. In her eyes, who isn't stupid? Sure You May said half seriously and half jokingly. If you ask me, isn't it the same whether a woman can read or not? What's the big deal? The most important thing is to marry a good husband, so that you'll have someone to rely on for the rest of your life. When Xingji heard this, her face reddened, and she couldn't help but lower her head and keep quiet. She was extremely embarrassed and thought to herself, what's wrong with this young mistress? I'm not very familiar with her. Why did she suddenly mention this to me? Silly girl, what are you embarrassed about? When Sure You May saw her embarrassed appearance, she was even happier. She couldn't help but hold her hand and said with a smile, which woman doesn't think this way? We're all women, so you don't have to be embarrassed. You're not young anymore. Are you betrothed? Xingji's face turned even redder, and she lowered her head even more. She stiffly shook her head and gently took back her hand. That's great. Sure You May didn't mind and clapped her hands with a smile. She asked, then are you willing to go with me? Young mistress? Xingji widened her eyes in surprise and raised her head. This servant doesn't understand what young mistress means. Sure You May brushed her slightly wrinkled clothes and said with a smile, I see that you're an intelligent person. I like you at first sight, so I won't beat around the bush with you. As you know, eldest young master is currently studying hard in preparation for the imperial examinations. It's just that he doesn't have a smart person to serve him, so it's inevitable that it will affect his hard work. Thus, he was thinking of choosing a good servant to serve him. It seems that you're the most suitable one. Hee, you're a child of our Sure family, so you're different from others. When young master succeeds in the imperial examinations, you'll be a proper concubine. Even Cui Zhu won't be able to compare to you. I'm not someone who can't tolerate others. Your young master has a good temper, so he won't treat you unfairly. When he has a son in the future, he'll have everything. Tell me, isn't this your good fortune? Which servant in the household wouldn't be envious of you? Who can compare to you in the future? Chapter 96. Sure Yumei's voice was crisp and carried a sense of pride. Xingji's face turned pale and her body felt cold as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. She could no longer hear what Sure Yumei was saying. She only felt that her ears were buzzing. There was only one thought in her mind. Eldest young master wanted her to serve him. Other than eldest miss, there was probably no one who didn't know what kind of person this eldest young master was. Even these daring servant girls would secretly make fun of him. What kind of future would she have if she married such a person? Even now, she was just a master living under someone else's roof. What envy! It would be good enough if her sisters didn't laugh at her when they found out. "Oh, look at how shy you are. This is a joyous occasion. What's there to be shy about? Let's go, I'll take you to talk to my sister-in-law. Pack up your things and kowtow to your old master. Then we'll go to Banana Courtyard." Sure Yumei stood up as she spoke and went to pull Xingji. Xingji turned around and refused. She forced a smile and said, "Eldest Missy, this matter is too unexpected. This servant wants to be alone for a while. Is that all right?" Xingji knelt down and kowtowed. Her voice trembled as she said, "This servant begs for eldest Missy's grace. Please, eldest Missy." Sure Yumei was startled. She thought that Xingji was overjoyed and thought that they would get along in the future. Wouldn't it be better if everyone was happy? She thought that she might as well give her a grace. She nodded and smiled. "That's good. Then you can think about it yourself. Think about it and you'll understand how joyous this is. I won't harm you. Then I'll talk to your eldest Missy tomorrow and take you there. Take some time to prepare and pack your things. At the same time, bid farewell to your former sisters." As Sure Yumei spoke, she took out a piece of silver worth about 2 taels and stuffed it into Jita's hands. With a generous smile she said, "Take this silver and properly prepare 2 tables for the sisters. You can keep the rest for your private savings." "This servant doesn't dare. Eldest Missy, please take it back." Xingji retracted her hand as if it was burning hot and refused to take it. Sure Yumei could only sigh with a smile and take it back. In her heart, she liked Xingji even more. What a good girl. Xingji walked Sure Yumei out without saying a word. As soon as she turned around, she couldn't help but burst into tears. She blinked her eyes and took a deep breath. Only then did she realize that her palms were cold and wet. She couldn't help but tremble a little. When she saw that a servant girl had come to fetch something, she hurriedly gathered her emotions and quietly went about her duties. Sangwon came back from the meeting room. Seeing that Sure Yumei had already left, she secretly heaved a sigh of relief and casually asked with a smile, "When did eldest Missy leave?" Hearing Xingji's reply, she didn't say anything else. After half a day, Xingji's silence finally caught Sangwon's attention. She seemed to have a lot on her mind. However, she didn't say anything, so Sangwon didn't ask. Xingji was too clean. Although she treated her much better than before and did her best, deep down, she was still the kind of person who didn't care about anything that didn't concern her. She was never willing to get involved in any trouble. In terms of loyalty and closeness, she couldn't compare to Luya or even Hong Yi. In the evening, Shi Fengju came back. The two of them chatted as usual, and then had dinner together. After dinner, Shi Fengju went to the study. Sangwon didn't have anything to do, so she ordered the servants to light up the lamps in the warm room, and played with a net to pass the time. Suddenly, she looked up and saw only Xingji standing in front of her. Sangwon couldn't help but smile and say, "Why are you here? You've been tired all day. Go and rest. You can call a servant to come in and wait." "This servant isn't tired." Xingji forced a smile and poured a cup of hot tea. She offered it to Sangwon with both hands and said with a smile, "Eldest young mistress, be careful not to hurt your eyes. Drink some tea and rest. Eldest young mistress often told us not to let eldest young mistress do anything at night." Sangwon smiled and took 2 sips. Seeing her face full of hesitation, she couldn't help but sigh. She gently put down the teacup in her hand and said, "Do you have something to tell me?" Xingji's body trembled and she couldn't hold back her tears. She knelt in front of the Kong and cried, "Eldest young mistress, please save this servant. This servant has no other way out." "What's wrong? Quickly get up and talk." Sangwon was shocked. She didn't expect that her casual words would cause such a big reaction. Xingji sobbed and wiped away her tears. With great difficulty, she held back her tears. She kowtowed to Sangwon and answered with a yes. Trembling, she got up and told her everything that Yume had said to her today. She then begged, "I beg eldest young mistress to help this servant. This servant only wants to serve eldest young mistress well, and get married in a few years. This servant doesn't want to climb up the social ladder, never. Even if this servant doesn't marry for the rest of my life, and serves eldest young mistress for the rest of my life, this servant is willing. I beg eldest young mistress to save this servant." Sangwon couldn't help but feel angry. This older sister didn't take her seriously at all. If this was the case, then she wouldn't have anything to say. But now that she had set her sights on her eldest maidservant, and even hid it from her, this was too much. Sangwon couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, Xingji had her own ideas and wasn't greedy for riches and honor. Otherwise, she would have happily gone with Yume today while she was still unaware of it. Wouldn't that be a huge joke? However, it didn't seem that easy to help her in this matter. After all, the person who opened her mouth was Yume, her eldest sister-in-law, and one who was doted on. Eldest young mistress, eldest young mistress. This servant begs eldest young mistress. Xingji saw Sangwon's dilemma and hesitation, and couldn't help but feel cold all over. She desperately begged with tears in her eyes. This servant swears that this servant is willing to serve eldest young mistress for the rest of my life and never marry. This servant begs eldest young mistress to save this servant. In the future, this servant is eldest young mistress's person, and this servant's life is eldest young mistress's. Don't say that. Sangwon couldn't help but sigh with pity on her face. In her previous life, she had suffered greatly from marrying the wrong person, and didn't know what would happen to her in this life. She could empathize with such matters and sighed helplessly. Why did eldest young mistress take a liking to you? You're a smart person, and you know how difficult it is to handle this matter without me telling you. This servant knows, Xingji choked with sobs. This servant knows that this matter is too difficult for eldest young mistress, but this servant has no one else to ask for help from other than you. I only beg eldest young mistress to take pity on this servant. Eldest young mistress mocked and ridiculed eldest young mistress for no reason. If eldest young mistress couldn't even bear to give her a maidservant, who knew what kind of trouble she would cause? However, eldest young mistress would definitely help her daughter. Eldest young master also doted on this older sister. The more Xingji thought about it, the more she felt that there was no chance of escaping this misfortune. Her face was ashen and her heart was like dead ashes. Could it be that only death awaited her? She couldn't accept it. She still wanted to ask for grace, so that she could marry a good person, and live the rest of her life peacefully and happily. She still wanted her child to be successful in the future, and not be a slave anymore. This wasn't just her hope, it was also her parents' hope. Could it be that it was going to be ruined today? Are you really not willing? Sangwon deliberated for a while, and decided to help Xingji. In her previous life, Xingji had married a steward in the Fu. As for what happened after, she didn't know. However, it didn't have anything to do with Renjishian. I'm not willing. This servant isn't willing. Xingji's eyes suddenly lit up. Without waiting for Sangwon to ask, she said seriously, Even if eldest young master becomes the top scholar and becomes a high-ranking official, this servant won't regret it. Good, Sangwon nodded and said. I can only help you try. I don't have 100% guarantee that it will work. If it doesn't work, don't blame me. Xingji was overjoyed and quickly knelt down and kowtowed to her. This servant thanks eldest young mistress. This servant understands. No matter what the result is, this servant will only be grateful to eldest young mistress. This servant won't blame eldest young mistress. Sangwon nodded. Don't cry. Wipe your tears and invite Mama Li over. This matter had happened in Ning Garden. No matter what she planned to do, there was no reason for her not to inform Mama Li first. Yes, Xingji took out a handkerchief to wipe her eyes and went to invite Mama Li over. After Mama Li came over, Sangwon explained the matter briefly. She complained to Mama Li, Mama, please be the judge. After eldest young mistress came back, how did I treat her and how did she treat me? I believe that I did my best and didn't let her down in the slightest. As long as she asked for something of mine, I would give it to her without hesitation. Even the mutton fat white jade hairpin that eldest young master gave me was given to her when she asked for it. Because of this, eldest young master almost blamed me for giving away something that he gave to someone else. But she didn't even inform me and wanted to take my servant away as soon as she entered Ning Garden. Isn't this clearly slapping my face? Sangwon desperately thought about her own miserable fate and difficult life. Her eyes turned red from grief. She couldn't help but wipe the corners of her eyes and say, if it was another servant it would be fine. But how could Xingji be given away so easily? She has been in Ning Garden for so many years. She knows and cares about eldest young master's matters. If she leaves, won't it make things difficult for me? Fortunately, this servant is reasonable and didn't leave with eldest young mistress today. Otherwise, Mama, how can I manage everyone in the family in the future? The more Sangwon said, the angrier she became. Her face darkened and she said resolutely, no matter what, I will never give Xingji to her. When Mama Li heard Sangwon say this, she couldn't help but feel angry. She felt that Shi Yumei was too unreasonable. However, her starting point was different from Sangwon's. She stood from the perspective of the entire Shi family. What she cared about was harmony in the family and prosperity in all matters. She originally wanted to persuade Sangwon that eldest young mistress had such a temper. She was like this even in front of old mistress. Young mistress, please don't be angry. It's just a servant. If she wants it, just give it to her. Later on, she would let young master give her a good scolding so that she wouldn't be like this in the future. Unexpectedly, Sangwon's words blocked what she wanted to say. Mama Li was speechless and couldn't help but sigh. She couldn't blame young mistress for being angry. Speaking of which, young mistress was already tolerant and good enough to eldest young mistress. However, not only was eldest young mistress not satisfied, she was even more enthusiastic. Even a clay person had a temper. No matter how good young mistress's temper was, it didn't mean that she didn't have a temper. If she really didn't have a temper and allowed others to bully her, then she didn't need to manage this family. Chapter 97. Mama Li didn't say anything for a long time. She glanced at Xingji, who was crying silently at the side. She thought to herself, a forcibly picked melon won't be sweet. Since young mistress was angry and Xingji was unhappy, it was better not to go over. Otherwise, it would cause more trouble in the future, and it wouldn't be good. Then, how does young mistress intend to deal with this matter? Mama Li asked with a smile. Sangwon sighed softly and said, it's precisely because I'm in a difficult position that I invited you here. I wanted to ask for your opinion. No matter what, eldest Missy is still my blood-related older sister. I don't want to fall out with her over this matter, and make everyone look bad. Mother and young master will also feel bad. But this time she really went overboard. Xingji is also my right-hand woman. I definitely can't let this matter go. Unexpectedly, before Mama Li could say anything, Shi Fengju lifted the curtain and came in. He asked, what happened? What happened to my older sister? What does it have to do with Xingji? The three of them changed their expressions. Xingji was so shocked that she almost blacked out. She thought to herself, "Oh no! Don't implicate young mistress when you can't escape the fire pit." Sangwon was also shocked and couldn't regain her senses. She thought to herself, "How could I be so careless? When I spoke, I should have asked Luya to stand guard outside the door." She didn't know how much he heard. Don't think that she was scheming against his older sister. Mama Li opened her mouth but didn't know what to say. She was afraid that Shi Fengju would blame Sangwon indiscriminately. She hurriedly smiled and said, "It's good that young master is here. It's best for young master to make the decision on this matter. Young mistress, why don't you tell young master in detail?" On one side was his older sister, and on the other was his daughter-in-law. It was better to let young master have a headache over this matter. As Mama Li spoke, she gave Xingji a look and pulled Xingji, whose half-body was still stiff, out of the room. It was better to let them solve their own problems. Sangwon also calmed down. She smiled and said, "Something did happen. Eldest young master, please take a seat. I will tell you slowly." Sangwon invited him to sit down and personally served Shi Fengju a cup of tea. She then sat down and told him what had happened. She told Shi Fengju that there was no need for her to beat around the bush like she did with Mama Li. She told him the truth and said, "Xingji didn't want to go. She cried and begged me to help her. But big sister didn't mention this to me at all, so I didn't take the initiative to mention it. I was discussing with Mammy Li, but I didn't expect you to come." She paused and said, "Big sister said that Xingji is smart and wants her to serve eldest brother-in-law so that he can study in peace. But in my opinion, although Jida is a woman of few words, she has her own ideas. Since she has already said so much, I don't think it's a good idea to force her to go over." Shi Fengju's face had already darkened. He said angrily, "This person really doesn't know how to be content. I didn't expect that he would even set his eyes on someone from Ning Garden. He really has guts." He then said to Sangwon, "Don't worry about this matter. Just leave it to me." He sneered. "Don't say that Xingji is unwilling. Even if she wants to go, she has to ask me first." Shi Fengju felt a wave of disgust when he thought about how his personal maidservant, who had served him for so many years, had become a concubine for that bastard Renjishian. That's it. That simple? Sangwon was so shocked that she couldn't believe her ears. She had been deliberating for a long time. Xingji had been worried for a long time. And Mama Li had been in a difficult position for a long time. All of this had been for nothing? He had easily settled all of this with just a few words? What's wrong? Are you stupid? Shi Fengju couldn't help but laugh when he saw her like this. He waved his hand in front of her eyes. "Then I'll thank eldest young master on behalf of Xingji," Sangwon said with a smile. "Since eldest young master has said so, then I don't need to worry anymore." Shi Fengju stared deeply at her and said with a smile, "Don't worry. I know how to tell big sister. Since she didn't mention it to you, just pretend that you don't know anything." These words were exactly what Sangwon wanted. She couldn't help but relax as she smiled and said, "N." Shi Fengju chuckled and said, "Let's not talk about anything else. You're the eldest young mistress of this household, so you can't give away your maidservant so easily. I still have a sense of propriety." Sangwon couldn't help but be stunned. She subconsciously avoided his seemingly meaningful gaze and said with some embarrassment, "Then I'll call Xingji to come in and kowtow to eldest young master. That way, she won't have to worry." She didn't wait for Shi Fengju to speak and called for her. Sangwon's heart was in turmoil. She didn't feel good about it. He really seemed to treat her differently. He had changed. She couldn't describe it, but she didn't hate it or reject it. It was just that it was a bit lacking. She sighed in her heart. "So what if you treat me well?" Gu Fengzi, concubine Gu, is still living peacefully in Peony Park. With such a living person in the household, it would be difficult for her to deceive herself and others even if she wanted to. When Xingji came in, Sangwon looked at her nervous expression and couldn't help but smile. "Your eldest young master said that you can't go even if you want to. How can you give away your maidservant so easily? Now you can rest assured, right?" As expected, Xingji was unable to contain her joy. Her eyes were shining as she hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed to Shi Fengju. This servant thanks eldest young master for his grace. This servant thanks young mistress for her grace. This servant will serve young master and young mistress well in the future. All right, you may leave. Just help your young mistress share her burdens in the future. Don't let her worry about you for nothing, Shi Fengju said with a smile. Yes, this servant will obey eldest young master's words. Xingji kowtowed again, then got up and left. As expected, Sangwon pretended not to know anything about this matter. The next day, Shi Fengju went to find his older sister. He didn't know what she said to Shi Yumei, but Shi Yumei didn't come to find Sangwon and Xingji again. The next day, a broker brought a trained maidservant to Ren Jixian, and Shi Yumei to pick one for themselves. Although Ren Jixian couldn't bear to part with Xingji, he didn't dare to touch Shi Fengju's reverse scale. He could only silently pick a pretty maidservant with charming eyes and bright eyes. Shi Yumei changed her name to Cuebao and placed her in the study to serve them. Shi Fengju then called Shi Ming back. Shi Ming felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. After giving a simple explanation, he left Banana Courtyard without looking back. Today the weather was good. Shi Fengju brought Sangwon back to the Mingda clan. He wanted to take her to a farm outside the city to stay for 2 days to relax. Shi Yumei happened to be talking to Wang. She saw Sangwon wearing a silver-red robe with a white bamboo leaf print and a long skirt with cinnabar trimmings. Her hair was tied up in a bun with a sparrow's head and a pearl hairpin. She looked rich and elegant. She was dressed to the nines. Standing next to Shi Fengju, who was wearing a moon-white brocade robe, she looked like a perfect match. Shi Yumei couldn't help but think of the white-clothed Gu Fangzi in the Peony Park. She suddenly felt uncomfortable. She smiled and said, "Second younger brother, you really know how to dote on your wife. You only took her out and didn't even bring your own sister out for a walk. To be honest, your eldest brother-in-law is always revising his homework. He should go out to relax from time to time." Sangwon subconsciously clenched her fists. If this eldest sister went with them, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to relax. Instead of relaxing, she would be worried. Shi Fengju chuckled and said half-jokingly, "Eldest sister should stay in the residence to take care of eldest brother-in-law and chat with mother. I'll specially invite eldest sister the next time." Eldest sister is right. Eldest brother-in-law should go out to relax, but a vulgar person like me doesn't have a single elegant bone in my body. I'm afraid that eldest brother-in-law will dislike going out with me. How can you say that? Shi Yumei couldn't help but laugh. She couldn't help but acknowledge Shi Fengju's words. Her husband often showed an expression of disdain for the stink of money in the Shi family. She knew it all too well. Shi Yumei suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. She smiled and said, "Elder sister is just joking with you. How can I have the nerve to disturb you too? Unless I'm deliberately inviting resentment. Second brother, it's fine if you go, but don't forget the old when there's a new person. As the saying goes, new clothes are not as good as old ones." "Yumei, you're doing it again." Wang chuckled and said to Sangwon, "Your eldest sister really likes to joke without thinking. All right, you two should hurry and go." Sangwon smiled and nodded. She didn't refute Shi Yumei's words. However, Shi Fengju smiled and said, "Eldest sister is right. Eldest sister, you have to watch closely. Don't let eldest brother-in-law forget the old when he sees the new person. When that time comes, you won't even have a place to cry." Cui Bao had just entered the residence the day before yesterday, and Ren Jixian had already taken her in as his room that night. These 2 days, he had ordered her to serve him closely. If there was anything in the residence that Shi Fengju wanted to know, how could he not know? How can you talk like that? You little brat, you're becoming more and more impudent." Shi Yumei flew into a rage out of humiliation and glared at him. She didn't want to let Wang make the decision. Wang found it funny and said, "You're still blaming him? Weren't you the one who provoked him?" She smiled and said, "However, I dare not guarantee anything else, but I can guarantee that my son-in-law isn't someone who doesn't know his limits. He definitely won't spoil his concubine and neglect his wife." "That's right." Shi Yumei snorted and raised her chin at Shi Fengju. She said disdainfully, "Isn't she just a plaything that can eat and talk? What's the difference between raising her at home and raising a kitten or puppy? Why should I lower myself to her level? I'm flattering her. Elder sister understands, Shi Fengju said with a smile. A wife is a wife, and a concubine is a concubine. They can never be compared. There's no need to talk about the old and the new. As he said this, he intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Sangwon. Then he smiled at his elder sister and said, "If he dares to do such an unreasonable thing, let alone elder sister, I won't forgive him either." Sure Yume was happy to hear this, but she didn't know whether she should be happy or not. She sighed and said with a smile, forget it. I can't win against you anyway. Let's hurry up and leave. Don't be an eyesore here." Everyone laughed. Shi Fengju smiled and pulled Sangwon away. The two of them got on the carriage and headed out of the eastern part of the city amidst the rumbling sounds. Through the thin curtains of the carriage, the bright sunlight cast a faint halo on the interior of the carriage. Looking out through the curtains, one could vaguely see the vast sky and the towering mountains in the distance. Sangwon's mood improved for no reason, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Speaking of which, it was pitiful. Other than going back to her parents' home, this was the first time she left the Shi family. Chapter 98. Let's go to Lingyan Mountain Villa. It's about 20 miles away from the eastern suburbs, so it should take about 2 hours to reach there. There are mountains and lakes there, and the scenery is very beautiful. Oh right, the crabs you ate a few days ago were fished from the lake there. Shi Fengju smiled as he explained to Sangwon. Sangwon nodded her head lightly with a no before suddenly tilting her head and asking, "Lingyan Mountain Villa? Is there such a villa in the household? Why don't I have any impression of it?" Sangwon secretly felt ashamed. When Shi Fengju asked someone to send the crabs over, she only cared about receiving it and tipping it without asking which villa it was from. Shi Fengju smiled faintly. "It's right that you don't have any impression of it. This villa doesn't belong to the household. It's my private property." "So it's private property." Sangwon's expression stiffened. She secretly cursed herself for being nosy and asking about other people's private property. Oh, she did not say anything else. No wonder he was so generous and didn't even bat an eyelid when building a garden for his sister. He must have quite a lot of private property. Shi Fengju took the initiative to say, "Other than this, there are 2 other private properties and 5 shops. The annual income is about 50 to 60,000 taels. Actually, in our family, other than third uncle's branch who is an official and has no private property, second uncle and second aunt also have properties and shops outside. Sometimes, they even ask me to take care of them. As long as the Shi family's foundation is not shaken, these things are actually not a big deal." As he spoke, he chuckled and continued, "Even mother, who is afraid of trouble and doesn't like to meddle, has a 3-sectioned residence in the south of the city and 2 silk shops in the city center. Mother's 2 silk shops are always on the verge of losing money. If I didn't ask someone to take care of them secretly, they would have long gone bankrupt." Shi Fengju added in his heart, "Your Shi family is really rich." Sangwon sighed in her heart, but she couldn't help but be moved. She thought to herself that if she could also buy some land, she would have something to rely on in the future. Unfortunately, although she had a lot of jewelry, antiques, paintings and silks, she basically had no silver. Those things could only be used and could not be exchanged for money. Sangwon couldn't help but feel depressed. She was thinking about how to save some money. However, even though the monthly allowance of 20 taels of silver looked like a lot, the amount spent was even more. Coupled with the frequent rewards, there really wasn't much left. He really had to think of a way to save some money. Every single cent that was saved would belong to him. He would have something to rely on and would feel at ease. He couldn't wait until the day he left and completely rely on his master's charity. If there were any variables and the godfather was unhappy and refused to give it to her, she wouldn't even have a place to cry. Shi Fengju saw that her expression suddenly changed. He didn't know if she had heard his words, but she didn't ask him with interest like he had expected. She also didn't ask him about it or make a request to buy private property. Shifengju couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He secretly said in his heart, say it, say it. As long as you say it, all the shops under my name will be yours. How could Sangwon know what he was thinking? Even if she had 10 times the courage, she wouldn't dare to think about it. Suddenly, she felt that Shifengju had stopped talking. The atmosphere in the carriage was a little gloomy, making her feel a little uncomfortable. She thought that he must have felt the same. After thinking for a while, Sangwon smiled and said, do you still have any big crabs in your manor? Although I took a lot that day, I was too busy taking care of mother, second aunt and eldest sister, so I didn't have time to eat too. If there are any more, you have to treat me today. Shifengju became happy again and said with a smile, originally, I took you there for the crabs. There are a lot of them. There's a lake next to the manor, which is also my property. Every year, the lake produces tens of thousands of caddies of crabs. The water there is good, and the crabs are good as well. Every year, I ask Uncle Chui and Aunt Chui to keep most of the crabs for themselves or give them to others. Really? Sangwon couldn't help but smile and said, I can see that I have good food. You can eat as much as you want. Uncle Chui and Aunt Chui know that we are going, so they should have already caught some crabs in the manor yesterday and are waiting for us. Shifengju said with a smile. When she smiled, her eyebrows were curved, her eyes were bright, and her pearl-like white teeth were exposed. She looked very smart and pretty. He couldn't help but feel his heart soften. He smiled and looked at her, lost in thought. The two chatted along the way, and the carriage turned into a quiet mountain road. They could see the green mountains, the birds chirping, and the leaves rustling in the wind. The air was filled with a pleasant fresh smell. Shifengju saw that there was no one in the forest, so he rolled up the curtain and ordered the coachman to slow down. He smiled at Sangwon and said, after we pass through this valley, pass through a forest and turn a corner, we will arrive. Sangwon looked out and saw that the middle of the forest was dyed red. Red maple, yellow maple, unknown purple, reddish-brown, and other kinds of leaves were mixed in with the green of the mountain. The colors were gorgeous and beautiful. There were also light purple, golden and snow-white chrysanthemums by the roadside, on the hillside, and in the forest. She didn't know the name of the flowers, but there were bright red berries hanging in clusters on the branches. They were very attractive. Eldest young master really knows how to choose a place. It's so beautiful here. Sangwon praised sincerely, her eyes full of admiration. Shifengju leaned over and said with a smile, not only at this time, but it's even more beautiful in spring. In summer, the trees are lush and shady. It's also an excellent place to escape from the heat. I'll bring you here again when the time comes. Okay. Sangwon agreed casually and smiled sweetly. Shifengju thought that she had agreed not to leave and not to leave him. He couldn't help but feel happy. He was so happy that the corners of his eyes were full of smiles. I'll definitely bring you here again. After passing through the valley and the forest, they saw a clear and shallow stream coming from the bend. The stream was about 10 feet wide, and the water was clear and shallow. They could see the fine sand at the bottom of the stream, aquatic plants, and all kinds of round and small pebbles. Occasionally, there were large rocks half hidden and half exposed on the surface of the water, stirring up the snow-white waves. Wild chrysanthemums were everywhere on both sides of the river, and the shrubs were overgrown. We'll arrive soon after we go around this bend. This stream flows from the Ling Lake next to the manor. Shifengju pointed and said with a smile. What a beautiful stream. It adds a lot of spirit to this mountain. Sangwon also praised with a smile. Sure enough, after the horse carriage went around the foot of the mountain and made a turn, it suddenly opened up in front of them. It was a sparse bamboo forest. After passing through the bamboo forest, they could see the white walls, black tiles, and overhanging eaves hidden among the green trees. That was the glittering mountain villa. They're here. They're here. They heard a lot of chatter and laughter. Before the horse carriage came to a stop, a middle-aged couple, a little girl around 12 or 13 years old, and 3 to 5 servants came up to them. The leading woman hurried forward and said with a smile, Eldest young master, eldest young mistress, you've finally arrived. The old slave thought that you should be here by now. Aunt Chui, Uncle Chui. Shi Fengju smiled and got down from the carriage. He helped Sangwon down and said with a smile, "Eldest young mistress has just returned. She loves the mountain scenery, so she's a little slower." The little girl, Cui Ling, hurried forward and bowed respectfully. She called out crisply, "Eldest young master! Eldest young mistress!" Shi Fengju smiled at her. "Little Ling has grown taller." Aunt Cui hurried forward to help Sangwon and said with a smile, "Eldest young mistress is so lucky. Eldest young master is a good person." Old slave was wondering which family's young mistress would be so lucky. She then sighed. "Only someone like eldest young mistress is worthy of eldest young master." "Aunt Cui, you're exaggerating." Sangwon blushed and smiled embarrassedly. Uncle Cui went forward and cupped his hands. "The manor has prepared everything. Eldest young master and eldest young mistress, please go in and rest." Yes. It's all my fault for being so long-winded. Eldest young master, eldest young mistress, please go in." Aunt Cui smiled apologetically. Everyone crowded around Sangwon and Shi Fengju as they went in. The rooms in the manor were very spacious and bright. The decorations were also much simpler. It was not as luxurious as the residence, but it was more natural and exquisite. After washing their faces and hands, Aunt Cui smiled and poured tea for them. She said with a smile, "This is the pine radish tea that old slave made himself. It's very clean, but I don't know if it's to eldest young mistress's taste. If eldest young mistress doesn't like it, old slave can make something else." When Sangwon heard her question, she knew that Shi Fengju liked to drink this kind of tea. She smiled and took a sip. It tasted light and had a faint grassy fragrance. She smiled and said, "This is good. I also like tea that has a mild taste." Aunt Cui smiled and said, "It's good that eldest young mistress likes it. If eldest young mistress doesn't mind, old slave can make some for you to bring back." Sangwon smiled and agreed. Aunt Cui smiled at the two of them and said, "I've prepared a few small dishes for lunch. The crabs are in the pond. I'll make some for eldest young master and eldest young mistress in the evening. It's still a bit early for lunch. Eldest young master and eldest young mistress, do you want to take a stroll in the orchard at the back? The pomegranates are growing just right now. A few days ago, some fruit peddlers came to ask about them. Old slave thought that eldest young master and eldest young mistress would be coming over in a few days, so he told them to come back a few days later to collect them." She then joked, "Pomegranates are good. Eldest young master and eldest young mistress should eat a few more. The more children you have, the more blessings you will have." "That's right. When we go back, you can ask someone to pick 2 baskets of good pomegranates for me to bring back." Shi Fengju couldn't help but grin in satisfaction. He glanced at Sangwon while he was at it. Sangwon was slightly embarrassed. She lowered her head and drank her tea, pretending not to hear anything. That's right. When the time comes, old slave will personally pick the best pomegranates for eldest young master and eldest young mistress." Aunt Cui beamed. Shi Fengju also smiled and said to Sangwon, "Let's go. I'll take you for a walk and relax." Sangwon couldn't refuse, so she smiled and said, "In." She got up. I'll go too. I'll lead the way with eldest young master and eldest young mistress." Cui Ling clapped her hands and shouted, "Okay, then let's go together," Sangwon said. This time, Shi Fengju insisted on not bringing a single maidservant with him. He only said that there were servants at the farmstead to serve them. As a result, Xingji, Luya, Hongyi, and the others didn't follow along. At this moment, Sangwon's heart was beating like a drum for Rizhong. Speaking of which, she had never been alone with him before. She was afraid that it would be awkward. "I'll go get a basket." Cui Ling cheered when she heard Gu Chengle's agreement. She quickly turned around and left. Shi Fengju felt helpless and could only smile without saying anything. Unexpectedly, Cui Ling came back with a basket. When Aunt Cui sent them out, Cui Ling suddenly looked up at Shi Fengju and asked, "Eldest young master, why didn't Miss Gu come?" Chapter 99. Sangwon's body stiffened. She felt as if her heart had been pierced by something. Although she didn't feel as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her head, she suddenly sobered up and returned to reality. That's right, this place is so beautiful. He must have brought his cousin here many times in the past, right? Shi Fengju subconsciously glanced at Sangwon. He saw that her eyes were slightly lowered and her expression was tranquil. He could clearly see a trace of sadness in her calm expression. Shi Fengju couldn't help but feel sad. He forced a smile and said, Miss Gu has something to do. She won't be coming here in the future. How would Cui Ling know the inside story? The little girl was outspoken. When she heard this, she let out a regretful, "Oh," and sighed softly. What a pity. Sangwon's expression changed slightly. She suddenly felt a little stifled in her chest. Aunt Chui's expression also changed. She glared fiercely at Cui Ling and said angrily, "Why are you so talkative? Why aren't you accompanying young master and young mistress? Why are you talking about irrelevant things?" As she spoke, she enthusiastically smiled at Sangwon and said, "Young mistress, there are not only pomegranates in the garden. There are also grapes, dates, oranges, and many other fruits. Young mistress can slowly walk around and try them all. The soil here is good, the water is good, and the fruits are especially sweet." "Is that so? Then I'll have to try them properly." Sangwon smiled. She waved at Cui Ling, who was gloomy after being glared at and reprimanded, and said with a smile, "Xiaoling, come here. I'm waiting for you to lead the way." "Yes, young mistress." Xiaoling glanced at her mother. Seeing that she wasn't unhappy, she became happy again and cheerfully led Sangwon away. Shi Fengju smiled bitterly and could only follow behind. Behind the manor was a stretch of hilly land, about 300 mu in size. All of it was planted with fruit trees. There was a patch of loquats, a patch of peach trees, and a patch of pomegranates. There was also a small patch of land close to the manor, about 4 to 5 mu in size. There were 1 or 2 trees of every kind of plant, such as bayberries, apricots, plums, pears, cherries, persimmons, dates, papayas, grapes, and so on. "Ma, pomegranate is over there. Watch your step." Cui Ling pointed to the north and said with a smile, "Look at that patch of fiery red hanging on the branches over there. When you come next spring, the peach blossoms will be in full bloom. This large area will be filled with beautiful flowers. When the loquats ripened in May, they were yellow and beautiful. The loquats here are especially sweet." "Really? It's great that you're staying here." Sangwon smiled. "Yes. I like it here too." Cui Ling nodded and smiled. "It's very nice and beautiful here. Father and mother said that it was all because of young master's grace." "Young master is our family's great benefactor." Cui Ling smiled at Shi Fengju as she said this. Shi Fengju caught up with her in a few steps and said with a smile, "Lass, your mouth is getting sweeter and sweeter. Why aren't you walking slower? Ma, can't keep up with you." Cui Ling glanced at the soft satin embroidered shoes on Sangwon's feet and smiled embarrassedly. "It's all my fault for not thinking it through. Ma, are you all right? Why don't you sit down and rest?" As she spoke, she looked around and saw a large rock not far away. She leaned over and blew on it, then took out a handkerchief and placed it on top of the rock. "Ma, come over and sit." Sangwon didn't want to go, but the soles of the embroidered shoes were too soft. They weren't suitable for walking in the mountains. Her feet hurt a little, so she walked over. Shi Fengju gently held her arm. "Slow down." Sangwon subconsciously struggled, but her small strength was neither painful nor ticklish to him, so she could only let him do as he pleased. After sitting down to rest, Shi Fengju said to Cui Ling, "Ma, these shoes aren't convenient for walking, so we won't go over. Go and pick a few good ones. It's time to go back for lunch. Wan Yang, we'll come again tomorrow after changing your shoes." "Yes, young master." Cui Ling happily nodded. This was her favorite thing to do. She agreed and dashed off. "Does your foot hurt badly? Is it serious?" Shi Fengju hurriedly asked. Sangwon's dark and watery eyes glanced at him, and she felt a little upset. She didn't expect him to notice this. Although the shoes on her feet weren't suitable for walking, she believed that she could endure this little bit of pain and discomfort, so she didn't show it. Unexpectedly, he sensed it. "I'm fine. I'll be fine after resting for a while." Sangwon shook her head and smiled. She unconsciously stood up and said, "Since we're here, I really want to go and take a look. Just walk a little slower." "Then walk a little slower. Don't force yourself if you don't feel well." Shifengju smiled and walked forward with her. He gave her pointers along the way as he introduced her. After passing through the peach forest, they saw a sea of red in front of them. Large pomegranates that looked like red lanterns decorated the branches, and the fruits were abundant. Sangwon couldn't help but praise with a smile. "The soil and water here are really good. These pomegranates grow so well." "Ma'am, young master." Chui Ling hurriedly ran over when she saw them. Her basket was filled with more than 10 fist-sized red pomegranates. She took one and wiped it on her lapel before handing it to Sangwon. "Ma'am, have a taste. It's really sweet." She then smiled and said, "But this isn't the sweetest time yet. After a few frosts in October, these pomegranates will be so red that they look like they're dripping blood. At that time, they'll be the sweetest and most delicious. Every single pomegranate seed will be completely red. Let me do it." Shifengju took the pomegranate that Chui Ling handed over. He pinched and broke the pomegranate in half and handed one half to Sangwon. "Be careful. Don't get it on your clothes." Chui Ling couldn't help but giggle when she saw this. She then said, "Young master is really good to ma'am. I've never seen young master." Ma'am, does your leg still hurt?" Chui Ling originally wanted to say, "I've never seen young master treat anyone so well. Even Miss Gu in the past didn't." She remembered her mother's glare and reprimand and stopped herself. "It's fine. Oh, here's your handkerchief. Take it and keep it well." Sangwon smiled and shook her head. She took the handkerchief out of her sleeve and returned it to Chui Ling. Chui Ling smiled and thanked her. The three of them then went back. When they passed by the forest with all kinds of fruit trees, they strolled around. Chui Ling carefully picked 2 bunches of ripe purple grapes and said that she would wash them later for ma'am to taste. Aunt Chui saw them return and quickly welcomed them with a smile. She supported Sangwon with an arm and said with a smile, "Ma'am, young master is back. Let's have lunch after resting." She then smiled and asked Sangwon, "Ma'am, are you tired? The road wasn't easy to walk, right?" Sangwon smiled and said it was fine. She then walked into the house. Not long after, Aunt Chui brought a servant to lay out the dishes. The dishes were all mountainous and wild. There were vegetables, chickens, ducks, fish caught in the lake, mountain bamboo shoots, mushrooms, wild vegetables, and so on. There was no chef at the farmstead. Aunt Chui and 2 servants did everything themselves. The simple stir-frying method used by farmers was nothing more than oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar. There were no other seasonings. Sangwon ate to her heart's content. The taste was very similar to what she ate at home. She couldn't help but praise Aunt Chui's cooking. She smiled and said that she hadn't eaten such good food in a long time. The Shi family's chef might not be the best in Qingzhou, but he was still one of the best. What good things didn't the Shi family have? Aunt Chui didn't believe Sangwon's words, but Sangwon's words made her feel especially happy and accomplished. She smiled and said, "It's good that ma'am likes it. Why don't ma'am bring the old slave along when you go back? The old slave will cook for ma'am every day. I'm just afraid that ma'am will get sick of it after 2 days." Sangwon smiled and said, "Really? I can't ask for more. I'm just afraid that Aunt Chui won't be willing to part with this place. I won't hide it from ma'am. Speaking of which, the old slave really won't be willing to part with this place." Aunt Chui didn't pretend and chuckled. Everyone laughed when they heard that. Aunt Chui couldn't help but secretly size up Sangwon. She didn't expect this young lady from the Sang family to be so dignified and elegant. She also treated people kindly and seemed to have a good temperament. No wonder young master treated her so well. Previously, she felt sorry for young master and young Miss Gu. Now it seemed that ma'am wasn't any worse than young Miss Gu. Young master was truly blessed. She couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Why didn't young Miss Gu come this time? She wondered how she was doing now. Aunt Chui suddenly felt complicated when she thought of Miss Gu's bright and cheerful smile. She didn't know whether she should side with ma'am or Miss Gu. She used to think that Miss Gu and young master were a perfect match, but now, She felt that the pair in front of her was a true match made in heaven. After dinner, Shi Fengju and Sangwon sat in the hall and drank tea. Aunt Chui hurriedly washed pomegranates, pears, grapes, and other freshly picked fruits and served them. There were also gorgons, chicken heads, lotus seeds, and crispy lotus roots that grew in the water. They're all grown in the farmstead. Although they aren't worth much, Ma, should try something new, Aunt Chui said with a smile. Sangwon nodded and smiled. Thank you for your concern. It's already rare to find something this fresh. You're right. The lotus roots grown in Lake Ling are especially crispy, sweet, and refreshing. Here, try it. Shi Fengju used a toothpick to pick up a piece of fresh and tender lotus root, and handed it to Sangwon. Sangwon wasn't used to his intimate behavior in front of others. She couldn't help but blush, but she couldn't refuse him. She could only smile and take a bite. It was crispy, sweet, and juicy, with the unique fragrance of lotus roots. Sangwon smiled at him and praised it. Aunt Chui was happy when she saw that she liked it. She couldn't help but smile and praise Lake Ling. Shi Fengju asked, "Why aren't there any water chestnuts? There should be a lot at this time." Aunt Chui smiled and said, "Young master is very attentive. We also picked a lot of water chestnuts this morning. It's just that the ones we picked this time were a little old and not crispy enough, so old slave didn't bring them up. Later, I'll ask Last Ling to pick some more for young master and young mistress to try." Shi Fengju's eyes lit up and he smiled. "That's great. The weather is good today. Later, Wan Yang and I will go too. We can also go sightseeing in the lake." He then smiled at Sangwon and said, "Crabs grow in Lake Ling. The water chestnuts grow the best. Since you're here, you must try them." "Young master is right." Aunt Chui quickly smiled and said, "Then young master and young mistress should rest first. Old slave will ask someone to prepare a boat." Shi Fengju smiled and said, "There's no need to trouble yourself. The small wooden boat that you usually use to pick water chestnuts is fine." Sangwon also smiled and said, "I've never been on such a boat before. It must be very unique." Aunt Chui smiled and said, "That's fine too. It's just that the boat is a little dirty. We still have to scrub it properly." She then went to instruct someone. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.